Hello, sisters. Okay, so welcome back to the Momo Show. Momo, say hello. Make some noises. No, she's too asleep. All right. So, um, this event was supposed to start now. Oh, it just started. Okay. So, I'm going to give some background on it before we actually start watching the stream. Also, I'm not 100% sure how well it's going to work that I'm streaming a live stream, like somebody else's live stream and commenting at the same time. I'm not sure how my internet's going to cope with that, but we're going to try. Okay. So I'm about to read the stuff from the website first. Screen share. Share audio. Hui. Share. Okay. Okay, so this is the thing we're about to watch. Dude, what a shitty website. Okay. Queer Vote Ontario. Also, I love this queervote.ca. Is there a major issue with queer people in Canada? I'm just gonna use the term queer as they use it for this because I don't have enough words to constantly be explaining myself. Is it an issue with LGBTQIA plus people or whatever the fuck two-spirit LGBTQIA plus people in Ontario that they don't know how to vote, that they don't know how to register to vote? Ariel, this is happening at the Metro Community Church in Toronto. Okay. Which district are you in? Are you in Christine Wong Tam's district? Okay. Anyway, I can't believe they made this a thing. Um is there an issue that they don't know how to vote or register to vote or something? Okay, whatever. So Queer Vote Ontario is excited to host a provincial election debate with questions from to SLGBTQI+. Where's the A? Exclusionary assholes. And other equity deserving groups such as Black, Indigenous, and disabled communities. Also, isn't that so great for Black, disabled, and Indigenous people that it's queer stuff and they get tacked on at the end? Isn't that great for them? I don't like this. Yeah, okay, whatever. All right. So, questions have been submitted, blah, blah, blah. It's being hosted at this church, which is a very queer church. They have they have this really cool thing, which is a refugee program for LGBT people who are becoming refugees in Canada. But if you look at who are the members of the church, they're all queerios and stuff. Okay. The live stream is on the Pride Toronto YouTube channel, which I think everything about this is ridiculous. The moderators, Jerry Atrick, a drag queen from Northern Ontario, from North Bay, right? And Martha Chavez. Chavez? Shouldn't that be a Z? Whatever. Award-winning Canadian comedian and actress. Okay. There is literally political commentators in Canada who are queer. They couldn't get anybody involved in politics to mediate this. Oh, Dragon, you're here just in time. Yeah, Christine Wong Tam, I can't stand her. Yeah. All right. She was one of the people. She went to the protest of the Meghan Murphy stuff in 2019. She protested it. Oh, wait. Before we do this, I want to see who are these people that are talking. Okay, so Christine Wong Tam. Yeah, whatever. She is from the NDP, so that's the Socialist Party. Toronto Centre. I mean, obviously it's in Toronto. I don't know. She's been around in politics for quite a while. She's a known name. People know who she is. Chair of the 2S LGBTQIA plus Community Advisory Committee. Chair of Community Development, Planning, Toronto Preservation. Oh, I like that actually. That's a good thing. We should do that. But accessibility, she's on a bunch of different stuff. She's the vice president of the 519 Community Center, which is the gay community center. Oh no, this is not. As a senior, I hate that name. Hate. Yeah. The Jerry Atrick is the name of the The name of the drag queen. Okay. Asian Canadians for Equal Marriage, Chinese thing, Church Wellesley Village Business Improvement Area. They definitely need it. It looks like shit, man. Um, okay, whatever. Whatever. Okay, so we get a sense of who is Christine Wong Tam. Okay. I don't really feel like looking up more about her, but she's been around in politics for a while. Okay, this guy, the rest of them I've never heard of before. Paul Sagil? Sagil. Willowdale. Bro. I have family that lives there. Okay. So I never heard of this guy before. I wonder if this is his first time running for office. Oh, he's a lawyer. There we go. He works at TD Bank Group, where he is on the front lines of fighting financial crime, combating corruption and sanction laws, child pornographers and human traffickers and war criminals. Dude, keep doing that. Don't get involved in politics. He's a community advocate. But what kind of boards does he sit on? And advisory groups does he sit on? Does that just mean that he's on like the TD Bank LGBT board or something for Pride or something? Like, what does that mean? I feel like I don't know enough about this man. Okay. Okay. Sean McClintock, Green Party for Nipissing, which is like in northern Ontario. Oh, that too. Yeah. Christine Wong Tam, she would like sit on boards and be in positions of authority to do with like tenancy and condos and like bylaws and stuff like that. Meanwhile, she owns like a crap ton of properties in Toronto. So it's like it's really corrupt that she acts like she's like because she's NDP, she's socialist. She acts all like I'm with the communists or whatever. Meanwhile, she's like a landlord or like a property owner who is like sitting on boards that are deciding on like city like ordinances and laws and shit bylaws to do with like property ownership. Like it's so fucking sketchy and she doesn't talk about it. Thank you for bringing it up, Dragon. I'm coming. I'm here. Okay. All right. Okay. Meet Sean. Let's do it. This is Sean. Nipissing University. I didn't even know Nipissing University was a thing. This is meeting Sean. This is what you have to know about Sean. It's pictures of him. Go away. Okay. Okay. Sean is an addiction counselor. Cares about his community, all right. A researcher. Does this look like a tiff to you? No, he looks like a dude. Okay. Oh, here, about Sean. Yeah, whatever. He wants to be in power. Addiction counselor. Mental health care, drug treatment programs, of housing affordability. Agreed, those things need to be changed. As a survivor of the child welfare system. Oh, interesting. He's passionate about advocacy for diversity, social justice, and income equity. Cares about climate. I mean, he runs for the Green Party. Of course, he cares about climate change. Oh, yeah, and its specific effect. Okay. Motivated by the unsettling direction Doug Ford, who is the current premier of the province. That's like for Americans, he's like the governor of the province. He's a conservative. He's the brother of Rob Ford, who you may have heard of. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we've met these guys. There's one last dude who like literally doesn't matter because he's from a nobody party. But let's see who he is because we're gonna hear Brian Crombie about the none of the above party. Oh, is this who are these people? So they're like an anti-party. Okay. Okay, good for him. Who am I? Tell us who you are. He's a Harvard Business MBA. He went to Western Paris. Fuck, bro. He's the CEO of TerraCap. I don't know what that is. Oh, a real estate development company. He owns his own capital partners. Dude, so he's some kind of guy with money who thinks it would be fun to like dip his toe in politics. Oh, but he's well connected in Mississauga. Maybe there's hope for him. I mean, he's obviously not going to get in, but maybe people will actually give a shit about what he has to say. Okay. So he's from like Mississauga Lakeshore, which is like basically like just right outside Toronto. All right. If anybody from Toronto or I mean Canadians, Ontarians have like specific things to say, let me know. All right. So we heard about who are these people. The Ontario PC, which is the Progressive Conservatives, the Ontario Party, I've never even heard of them before, and the New Blue, which are like the conservatives. Like basically there's a general sense among conservatives in Canada that the Conservative Party has gone too left. So they need like a more conservative party. That's what the New Blue is right now. I'm pretty sure they are the only like anti-abortion party running in this election. Never responded to multiple invite requests, including direct contact with the party leaders. Okay, great. Well, Queer Vote Ontario. Somebody open your phone. Let's see what they're talking about. The font on his site is good. Okay, so this is the church. As you can see, this church has like a rainbow flag and a trans flag. I have to say, first off, these are like the really shitty polyester flags you can get from like Amazon, and that's disappointing. They should have real flags, okay? Who is this? Who are these people? I thought it was Christine Wong-Tam. This is the Brian Crombie guy. Who are these people? This is not the young NDP, the young green guy, and who was the other one? I don't fucking remember. Okay, I need to plug in my headphones. I don't have speakers on my computer, lol. Settings. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Looks like a Tim in the Pink. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Maybe they have proxies. Maybe the guy from Nipsing and oh no, maybe that's the drag queen. I don't fucking know. Maybe is that the drag? I don't fucking know. Okay, let's see. Where did this start? Here we go. I hope this works well. We'll see if it like glitches or whatever. I thought that if I give it time to buffer, it would be better. I don't know. We'll see.
That are tuning in online. Here at MCC Toronto, we seek to be a vibrant, inclusive, and progressive church and a human rights church. And we've got a long history of political action. 21 years ago in January, the world's first same-sex marriages to be legally recognized were performed like right there. And we're really proud of that around here. It wasn't just an act of faith for us, it was an act of political activism. And so we are happy to be sharing our space for tonight's Queer Vote Ontario Candidates Debate. I was offered concert tickets tonight, and I pass them up because as a trans Ontarian, I believe this stuff is really important. There are parties with ideologies that would make life harder for folks like me, and there are parties with ideologies that would make life better for folks like me. And speaking of folks like me, my name is Reverend Junia Joplin, and I am the Associate Pastor here at MCC Toronto. There are all gender and accessible washrooms in the hallway out the door.
I've never seen like a vicar or a pastor or whatever who is wearing like the collar and like a super fucking tight shirt like this. So it's like we need to know that this person is like a vicar or a pastor, but also we need to see that this person has a feminine body shape. Obviously, it's very important.
Door to my right, and there are signs, I think, guiding you to a women's washroom downstairs out there too. Two more things before I hand things over to tonight's fabulous moderators. First, the donations that folks have been making tonight for this event are being used to support the work that MCC Toronto does to help LGBTQ plus refugees. Each year, we provide assistance to some 800 queer asylum seekers from all over the world, and we think that's really important work. And so we wanted to give you all a chance to join in that work tonight. And finally, we want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, culture, and territory of the Indigenous peoples who have inhabited this land for many generations. We recognize the lands that we are gathered on tonight are the traditional territories acquired sometimes justly, sometimes unjustly from the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe.
Is there, according to woke people, what is the just way for white people to have acquired land from Indigenous people? I've never heard anybody say that. That's very interesting to me. That's very interesting that the wokes are saying that.
Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit and the Métis Nation. We also want to recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land today. We believe that we are all called to love our neighbors without exception, and so we seek to heal from the sins of our colonial past through truth and reconciliation. And with that, here we go.
Somebody asked, what kind of church is this? I'm trying to look it up. It says in 1973, in response to a petition, the Universal Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches sent Reverend Bob Wolf from Los Angeles to establish MCC. So it's like its own kind of thing. It's not like a United Church or like a Episcopal church or something. It's like a Metropolitan Community Church. Apparently is its own type of church. I don't know. I mean, as far as I can tell, feel free to do. Oh my god, they mentioned the bathhouse raids on here. Wow, it's very queer involved. Okay, whatever. Let's continue.
Thank you, Reverend. And to our candidates, Sherwin Modest, Executive Director for Pride Toronto. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here to hear what 4 of our political parties have to say around some very important issues for our communities. It is really important that we hear directly from you. And this is why we're here. So I'm really happy that when Jason made the call and said, let us do this, I could not turn down this moment.
Yeah, so I guess the Tim in the very tight shirt is a Reverend, LMAO. What? I'm going to speed up the video a bit. If it's really too fast for you guys, let me know, but I'm going to speed it up to 1.25 speed because this is fucking boring.
So thank you very much. And again, this is an opportunity for you to tell us, as folks from Ontario, I'm not going to try to get it right, what your plans for us. So at this time, I would like to introduce a friend, a colleague, an elder, a spiritual leader for me, Elder Blues, who will do our land acknowledgement and traditional blessing. Elder Blues.
I also just want to say, having any religion in politics, to me, it's one thing to be, this is a good venue, like a physical space. This is we can get cameras in here and seating in here. This is a good space to do this. It's another thing to be we're going to do it here. And also, let's pray before we start the debate. That's a different thing. What are you doing?
I hope you can see me. I'm not that tall. So I'm not going to go up above anybody because it's my teachings that we stand amongst each other and not above each other. So I'm very happy to be here tonight, and thank you to this beautiful location that takes care of our community, that looks after those that have been forgotten and those that are still refused spaces and places to be at. So thank you for that to those responsible for maintaining this space, for providing the services that they provide, and to make this space available tonight for us so that we can ask the members of the parties up here, how are they going to represent us? We need to see ourselves reflected and respected throughout all of Toronto. So tonight I'm going to ask those ancestors to come and be with us tonight. All of our ancestors, not just Indigenous ancestors, but all of our ancestors. All those that have walked on this land and tried to be the best person they could be and tried to be who they could be, but were not allowed. They were told that they shouldn't be, they don't belong, and the way of living was not correct. And we know that diversity, our ancestors walked that way. We know that before the idea of the colonial binary came in, that we were allowed to be who we were because we all come as a beautiful gift,
Oh my god.
whether we believe in
Before the colonial non-binary lady.
the Creator, whether we believe in God, whether we believe in that person who created all of the spaces for us and the land for us. So we come as that beautiful gift. So we ask those ancestors, be with us tonight as we do this hard work. Because it's hard work to voice our voices when we're always told to be quiet. It's hard work that our voices have been silenced for so long. And each one of you that are in this room tonight are your ancestors' dream. You are the ones they dreamt that would make change that they didn't make change with because they weren't allowed to. Their voices were not honored. They were not honored. So we honor them tonight.
Okay, I keep stopping this, so it's going to take us like 3 hours to get through this. Maybe we won't get all the way to the end, but it's really weird to me. This is like a political debate, so I bet you tons of people who have never seen any of these like religious leaders or elders talk before are tuning into this, and it's like they're taking a chance to like proselytize. They're taking the opportunity to proselytize. It's like freaking disturbing. It's like this is supposed to be about politics, not religion, and all this crap and whatever.
And invite them to be here with us. But not only those ones that are gone into the spirit world, but those that are waiting in that spirit world, waiting to be born. They're watching us and they're wondering, can I come to this place? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be included? Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be honored? Because I'm going to bring my gifts with me and I'm willing to share them with each and every person. Because as you heard from the Reverend earlier, we all deserve love and respect, right? We all deserve to be treating each other as an equal human being and value each other. No matter what our differences may be, we all deserve love and respect and kindness and compassion. And so we look towards those little ones waiting to come, and we're asking them to come, that spirit to come here with us tonight and let them see us do this work. Because that's what we're doing this work for, not only for ourselves. We can't change what happened already. It's gone by. But we can make sure it doesn't continue to happen, and we can stand up and support each other in the best way possible. So tonight, I hope we ask these representatives, what are you going to do for us? How are you going to make sure that we get the supports that are needed? How are you going to make sure that not a young person takes their life again because there's not supports, because they're told not to be who they are? Our trans community suffers each and every day being told they're not all of. And that's not right. Where are the supports? Where are the supports for our young trans youth that are not accepted into places because that binary still exists, where we still divide by male and female? What are those like me? In my language, I would start off by saying Tanseyaski Nikamun, Natisi Nakasun, Mayingandodem, Atathakup, Saskatchewan, Red River, Eskazoni, Nadunjaba, a Yahweh. What I've told you is my name is Earth Song. That is the name I had before I became a human being, that my ancestors and all those waiting to be born knew me by. My families are from Atathakup, Saskatchewan, and Eskazoni First Nation in the Red River. And I'm from the Wolf Clan, but mostly I'm a Yahweh, which is the Cree word for neither man nor woman. I don't have to fit into either of those. I can be who I am and walk between and with and cross over and come back. I don't have to be just a man or a woman. And we don't have to just stay men or women when we don't see ourselves reflected in those mirrors. Our youth are waking up and looking into that mirror each and every day and saying, this doesn't look like me. This doesn't feel like who I see myself. How is healthcare going to help our youth in that way? How is healthcare going to address our youth that are suffering with their mental capacities, not being able to be who they are? To have to wait for a long time to be seen, and then to be seen by someone who has no understanding of the 2S LGBTQIA+.
Dude, you have no understanding of the 2S LGBTQIA+
community. How is our healthcare going to be educated? Our school system has started education, but our healthcare is far behind. I've gone into hospitals, and they've said, where are you from? What is your religion? Thank you, miss. And I said, who said I'm miss? Well, it's either Miss or Mrs. No, it's not. So that tells me that there's so much more work to be done. And I don't know about all of you, but I'm tired. I'm tired. I've been doing this work for 62 years almost. And there's many that have been doing it for longer than me. But tonight we're going to.
All of the marketing for this event used that acronym specifically. They put Two-Spirit first before anything else. This is like extremely performative and utilitarian.
See where you all stand. And we're going to ask for your truth. As Indigenous people, we stand in truth. It's very important to us, that truth. There's only two things we have in this world, which is our words and our bodies. And we know how much our bodies are not respected and violated. 2S LGBTQIA youth experience violence at such a high rate above everyone else. So we're asking you for your truth tonight.
And being like talking about violence and then at the same time being like, my oppression was I was misgendered by the doctors. And then being like, because violence, like the juxtaposition is like insane.
And to let us know. And if you don't know, please tell us you don't know. It's okay to say you don't know, because then let us help you to understand what you need to know and what changes need to happen. So we thank those ancestors for coming here to help us speak these hard truths, to be able to ask the hard questions, and to come with kindness and compassion. Yes, we're angry. Yes, we're disappointed. Yes, we're sad. But we have to put those emotions aside and think, what do we need and how can we get it? And let's work under those ways to make sure that our representatives represent us and that our voices are heard and amplified and respected, and then we can move forward in good ways. So thank you to each of you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. I am an outspoken person, but that's why my community has me, because I've learned how to fight back and I've learned how to advocate. And it's my job to teach it to other people, because if I don't, it stays with me and it goes with me. And then what has my life been? So please take whatever words you've heard tonight, try to share them with your communities, share them with the representatives. And most of all, remember that you are a beautiful gift just as you are. You don't have to be anything other than you. And no one should tell you you have to.
Yeah, I literally thought it was like a person sitting there with a sheet on top of them. I don't know what it is. Like, it must be some kind of thing for like a sacrament or something. Maybe it's a cross of some kind, or like a statue of Jesus or something. Something that's like too religious, they don't want it to be visible. Also, I'd just like to point out, why are there like all these fucking mic stands and music stands and shit behind them? Could they not clean off the stage before this started? Okay, whatever.
To be different. Miigwech, hi. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, pigeons. How are you?
The drag queen has arrived, y'all.
Oh, look at that. Oh, you're way back there. I see you. How are you? Good. My name is Geriatric. It used to be Anita Woody, but they don't let me use that name anymore. You get it later when you think about it on your drive home. Listen, my name is Geriatric. Like I said, I am from the north. We have electricity. We have indoor plumbing. It's really amazing. The world does not stop at the berry. Right, Sean? Right. Anyway, we invited all the parties to participate in this debate. We worked with the leaders. As you know, a couple of them caught COVID, sadly, and weren't sure what they were going to be able to do or whether they're going to be here. So they decided that the best thing to do was send representatives that speak on their behalf. So as you can see, we have these wonderful folks here, all set. But I felt a little bad about the conservatives. Yeah, I did. I felt a little bad. I think they needed a little representation here at the debate. So I went out of my way today. I went to the Arctic. So I thought, let's give Doug a little bit of representation here today. All right. There you go. So Doug is actually here.
Dude, what the fuck is happening? What is happening? This is the Premier of Ontario, the leader of the Provincial Conservative Party. What is happening? What is happening?
He is technically at a rally they decided to do 2 days ago, so he could have come, but he doesn't answer the phone for us. Anyway, so I have the pleasure of joining one of the most amazing people I've met and watched over the years. Not too many years, because she's only 21. So I just want to make sure she knows that. You've seen her on TV, you've seen her on the comedy tours, you've seen her everywhere. Martha Chavez.
Hello, how you doing? I am Marta Chavez. I am a comedian. I'm a stand-up comedian. I was born and raised in Nicaragua, and I am just amazed that I am here. You know, how do you say, with the distinguished people here from the government. In my country, the government doesn't even allow you to have rivals. The president, the dictator, he sends people to jail before they even run. So this is amazing for me to be here. The things have been happening in Canada that I don't like. Well, besides the COVID, I went to Central America in March, and usually people from my country, they don't know anything about Canada. They just know that in Canada there is snow. And they think that the snow is beautiful and pristine, like in the Christmas cards. They don't know everything that the snow involves. But now when I
Dude, like we're 15 minutes into this thing and they're still doing the introductions and the preamble and the emceeing and crap. Whenever we get to the actual, okay, like I can't do a poll, but if you want me to like skip all this crap, let me know. We can just like skip to the actual debate. I'm sure it'll be horrible too.
went, they knew about Canada because of the truckers. My cousin tells me, hey, I heard that there is a revolution in Canada. But what a nice revolution. There is a jacuzzi in the revolution. There is a bouncy castle in the revolution. They were roasting a pig in the revolution. Children are playing hockey in the revolution. What a nice revolution. And you were so oppressed in Canada that people showed up at the presidential palace with huge posters to tell the dictator to go F himself. So that's such a great oppression to be, like when you are really oppressed, believe me, you wouldn't be there telling that you are oppressed. There was a woman.
A bunch of you say skip, I'm gonna skip. You could the link to the actual live stream is in the description, so if you want to watch it like the original one, you can. But the live chat's turned off, I think. So, oh my god, how long does this lady talk for? Okay, is she sitting down here?
Thank you.
All right, so we've drawn an order in the back, says as Doug is number 5, just so you know. So each candidate has an opening statement to make. They get 2 minutes for their opening statement, and we will start at the beginning, and they will introduce themselves with their pronouns as well, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Brian Crombie, he, him. I have to tell you, I want to vote for you. You're fantastic. Can you come take my spot? Like, you're great. But the problem is, I apologize, the problem is you talked about love and respect. And in politics today, forget love, just hope for respect. And I don't think respect exists anymore. And that's the problem. I'm here representing the none of the above party, and that's not a joke. I'm not the comedian, you're the comedian. The none of the above party actually has a very serious point of view, and that is there's something wrong with our democracy today. And there is no love, and for sure there's no respect. And what we need, all these people and all the people that are putting their names forward for politics are really good people that want to do something better for their society. But the problem is once they get into parliament or the legislature, they end up doing what the leader or the whip want them to do rather than what they should be wanting to do and what we want them to do. And they end up infighting and becoming partisan and arguing nonstop in a way that, just wouldn't accept of others. And so that the party is all about real democracy. Number 1, referendums. Number 2, recall. Over 50 countries in this world have referendum and recall, and they work. Direct democracy, people actually getting a booklet in Switzerland, having referendums in the United States, having recalls in the United States. It's been proven if you just threaten a recall, politicians smarten up. And third, and most importantly, I think, is proportional representation. If people actually have a voice in parliament, in the legislature, they don't need to go and protest against the revolution and start a revolution because there is a voice. If we had proportional representation, the Green Party would have in the last federal election somewhere around 10 seats rather than the one that they've got. And the PCP, which I disagree with, would have about 30 seats. And so I think some of those people that went to Parliament Hill and protested back in January actually would have had their voice heard in the parliament, and there would have been less reason to go and object. So think about what we do to improve our democracy. Have one person, one vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation to participate. It's a real honor to be here. My name is Kristen Wong Tam, and I'm here representing the Ontario New Democratic Party. My pronouns are they, them, she, her. Thank you to the organizers, and of course to all
Torontonians in the chat. Have any of you heard that Christine Wong Tam is now going by they, them? Like, maybe she is like a normal woman who has added the they, them on the end for clout. That is my immediate reaction to what she has just said. Like, she's just a lesbian, right? Since when is she a they, them? Like, this is news to me. Okay.
all the candidates who put their names forward. This is a really exciting conversation. I can't tell you how deeply I am honored to have this conversation, which I believe is almost historic, talking about LGBTQ equality in Ontario. especially since over the last 2 years, we've seen a disproportionate number of our community members hurt and harmed through the pandemic, not making it through, and oftentimes disproportionately impacted. So we know that politics does matter and decisions do matter. And we also
Do we know that LGBTQ people were disproportionately impacted by the lockdowns? Because what I know is that most of the gay bars closed. Is that a direct correlation to LGBT people in Canada are being negatively impacted? Like, she's also on the business development committee for the gay village in Toronto. So I'm like, are you conflating the two? Oh, Ariel looked up who is this woman. Laureen Blue Waters, Itzy, Nikamoon, Earth Song Cree Métis, Mi'kmaq from the Wolf Clan, member of the Métis Nation of Ontario. Wow, it's a very long list of affiliations. And I'm sorry to anyone that I butchered it. Thank you for looking it up. I didn't want to just like go back and like try to find it again and go back and like, you know what I mean? Like start messing around with that. Thank you for looking it up.
also recognize that it's very difficult to make change. I've chosen to run for the NDP because I believe that we're the party for that change. We have an extraordinary history and track record of LGBT equality and advocacy. I myself am a human rights advocate and have spent a lot of my time actually working towards building equality and acceptance for our community, whether it's funding LGBT youth shelters or providing access and support to equal marriage. I've actually done that work as an advocate. I also came out of the closet when I was 16 years old, and I can tell you I wasn't ready for the big decisions of life, and I wasn't greeted with love and warmth despite the fact that my family loved me. I found myself homeless. I found myself living in a shelter. These are not easy things to admit out in public, but it's important for us to recognize that my story is not so unique. All of those lived experiences now informed what I do, especially through a public legislative lens. And I'm very proud that our party has 12% of our candidates who are from the 2S LGBT community, our party who has been fighting for gender affirming rights, for equal parenting rights, and the absolute ban of conversion.
Her party is the one who's responsible for like all of the queer stuff, like almost all the queer stuff. Like a lot of the times they don't have the numbers to pass it, but they're the one who introduces it and like makes coalitions to pass it. So like the gender identity stuff in schools, like gender affirming healthcare being covered, like her party is running on a platform of, well, they're always about healthcare. They're the party that introduced socialized healthcare to Canada. So like that's good, obviously. But they're going to like they're going to allocate more funding specifically to pediatric transition if they get elected. They also want to like socialize vision and dental, which are private. So like that's good, but I just yeah, and the conversion therapy stuff, what's his name? Randall Harrison, is that his name? The federal NDP who proposed that bill and championed that bill. Yeah, so her party is like the queer ideology party more than any other party.
Therapy. I look forward to tonight's dialogue. Thank you so much.
Firstly, thank you to Queer Votes for being here and bringing this debate here in this room and elsewhere. Thank you to the MCC for being a haven and a sanctuary for people like myself for well over 25 years. Thank you to the Green Party of Ontario for having confidence in its candidates. Myself, Sean McLaughlin, who is here, we have real bench strength when it comes to LGBT issues. One of the things we're here to discuss today is expanding coverage of and access to gender-affirming healthcare. And it's a tenet in advocacy that there should be nothing about us without us. I'm honored to be a candidate for the Green Party and a trans person with a long history of trans advocacy. Because of that, although Mike Schreiner would have been here and would have been an excellent spokesperson, Mike Schreiner, the Green team, Sean McLaughlin and I had some conversations about the need, the absolute need for trans representation on this stage right now. And if you're in any doubt about the level of commitment.
Okay, so what's happened is, I mean, I don't know what the reality of the situation, but what this Tim has just said is that the young guy who was like a drug counselor who was from like a foster care system up north from Nipissing, he intentionally was like, we need a trans person sitting in that debate. So I'm going to leave the debate because you should be there instead of me. who knows what the actual reason is, but wow.
that the Green Party of Ontario has to trans issues. I am sitting right here, right now, because they put the money where the mouth is. No empty words, and certainly no tokenism. The T does not stand for tokenism in this party. So I've got a few seconds. What does the yellow one mean? Oh, okay, thank you. Well, I think I've said my piece, so I'll be talking later on. But I just wanted to say thank you, Sean McLaughlin, who is here, and also a thank you to Mike Schreiner and the rest of my LGBT colleagues, any one of whom could replace me on this stage and speak with passion and clarity and authenticity. So thank you. And thank you also for an amazing introduction. That was very, very moving. Thank you for that.
It is, as Kristen said, an incredible privilege and honor to be here. My name is Paul Seguil. I'm a candidate for the Ontario Liberal Party. My pronouns are he and him. And if you had told me when I first came to Canada about 30 years ago that I'd be sitting on a stage as a queer Asian, queer Filipino with such amazing community leaders, this type of forum discussing the issues, I would have never believed it. It is truly a privilege and an honor. And for one, I would like perhaps maybe to set the tone for this conversation and just applaud the parties who have put forward such powerful community advocates to bring forward the issues that we care about. Regardless of your partisan stripes, it is incredible that we as a community have come so far, and yet we have so much more that we need to accomplish. I'm proud of the record of the Ontario Liberal Party. We elected the first woman, the first lesbian premier, and we have demonstrated our commitment throughout for a long time on to us LGBTQ issues. For those who don't know me, I hope I'll get the chance to talk through this conversation about my own personal history as a community advocate. But Nikki and Kristen know me. I've been in the community with them, and I've fought shoulder to shoulder with them on things like inclusive education, fighting for trans folks, fighting for marginalized communities, and that's what I will continue to do within my party, within the legislature, in whatever forum, platform that I have. That's what I'm committed to doing, and thank you so much to the organizers for putting this together.
All right, Doug, you're up. Oh, wait, I should do it for him. My friends, my friends. Who is your friend? Oh, sorry. Anyway, so you just stay there and sweat. It's fine. Climate change. Did anybody mention that to you, Doug? Go ahead, Bertha.
Should we start with the questions already? Okay, we have a lot of questions. And I know Doug is not. The other day he said that that I'm not supposed to be partisan, but it's just that the other day he said that he doesn't admit any bigotry from anybody. And then I fear that he was going to be marching at Pride. I don't want that, you know. I think nobody's going to be at the cottage, right, Doug? Right, yeah. So the first question. Due to this is somebody's ended. Due to very
the last premier of Ontario before Rob Ford. No. Yeah, the last one right before Rob Ford was Kathleen Wynne. She was from the Liberal Party, which is the same party as this guy. I can't remember his name. Seguido or something. This guy, the Liberal guy. The same party. Yeah. She was tight with all like the queer orgs and shit, but she was like one of those lesbians with a lot of money who's super, super out of touch with shit. Just for reference.
Various social and economic factors, the gender and sexually diverse community are disproportionately affected by mental health and addiction. What steps will you take to improve our community's overall mental health and wellness? What will your party do to improve mental health and wellness in the LGBTQ2S community?
A few things. I think I really appreciated the executive director of Pride in your introduction. Thank you for being here. My son is gay, and I thought he was very accepted by his family. And I went to a Pride parade and held up a sign that said, "I'm proud of my gay son." And there's lots of PFLAG people that probably participated in those kinds of marches. I was surprised when he later came to me and cried and said, "Thank you, Dad, for doing that." And I thought that he understood that he was completely accepted. But there was something about actually publicly acknowledging that I was proud of him, even though I thought privately he knew that completely and knew that from his whole family. And so I guess that's number one, is that I think we have to show pride for everybody, whether it's a gay son or anyone else.
Question was, as a party, what would you do to improve, to create facilities or mental health
I
help?
completely understand. And I think the first thing and the most important thing is showing pride. for everybody. That's the most important thing. And the fact that this gentleman wouldn't march in pride parades, I think, is the opposite of showing pride. And obviously,
So Doug Ford was like invited to Pride but didn't go to Pride. Honestly, like it kind of makes sense to me because like the conservatives have already like course corrected on like being homophobic, at least in my view of things. Like when it comes to like their own constituents or their own voting bloc, they've been like, yep, we're not homophobic anymore. And it's not like there are tons of like LGBT people running to vote for the conservatives. So it's kind of like, to me, like from a pragmatic point of view, I'm like, I don't see what purpose it would serve to him politically to go to Pride. But the liberals, the NDPs and the Greens, they almost always send someone. Christine Wong Tam is probably at Pride every fucking year. And I remember the one year I went to Toronto Pride, apparently Trudeau was there, and like with like a sea of people with like liberal flags, like red flags and stuff. Literally, I was like, oh, it's getting hot. I've been here for like 2 hours. I'm gonna go get like a frappuccino or something. And I came back and people were like, whoa, did you see Trudeau? And I missed him. But anyway, I'm just like, the whole thing is like woke virtue signaling and completely like performative and disgusting. The fact that Doug Ford didn't take part in that, to me, it doesn't say a lot. The fact that he didn't like woke virtue signal and like try to like tokenize and use pride like that, it doesn't say a lot to me. Like I don't really give a shit, honestly. Whatever.
negatively impacts everyone's mental health. I think mental health is an issue not just for the gay community. It's a huge issue in the last couple of years. I was in a debate last night where people with autism were complaining about a 17-year wait list. And so therefore, what we need to do more than anything else is fund mental health, fund healthcare equally for everyone, no matter where they come from and what their sexual orientation, what their gender orientation, gender definition, what their mental health issues are. Equal access for everyone is what my party would stand for, because we're a direct democracy.
Martha, thank you for that question. It's deeply personal and one that I think is so critically important. When we have 1 out of every 3 trans person contemplating at some point in time suicidal thoughts, we have another epidemic happening in our community. It's happening out in the open. When we have community members that are falling through the cracks because the social safety net doesn't recognize them for who they are, their authentic self, these are things that can be prevented. So I will tell you that the NDP has committed to creating an 2S LGBT inclusion action plan. And what this will do is actually ensure that the lived experiences of our community members are going to inform the changes necessary so that we can stay healthy and safe. And that includes providing adequate supports through healthcare, education, long-term care, so from the beginning of life to the end of life and everything in the middle. It also means that we're going to invest in these services by ensuring that we provide adequate funding for universal, publicly funded mental health support. So therefore, for those who need access to mental health care, especially when it comes to breaking down barriers, but also by building themselves up so that they can stay healthy, that is going to be critically important. The other thing, and I'll just end on this because I think I'm going to run out of time, is talking about what happens in the education system. We have so many kids, especially young kids, that are falling through the cracks because we have publicly funded schools, including the Catholic School Board, that have been allowed to discriminate against LGBT students. So a large number of our reforms need to take place through those institutions. It can't just be individual acts of kindness, which are very important. They are symbolic, but it has to be structural change, and it can't be when it's only convenient. So marching in pride is just the easiest thing. It's the lowest hanging fruit from any premier to do, and it can't just be wearing a t-shirt when it's convenient to wear pink, but it's about standing up for the community when we need it the most, when it's the most convenient, and even when it means that you pay a political price, and that's what the NDP will do. Thank you.
Mike Schreiner has been very clear, and our party has been very clear. Mental health is health. You've got a broken leg, broken heart, or a broken mind, we must have universal access. As it relates to people within the LGBTQ spectrum, I'm a victim of bad healthcare because when I first came out 25 plus years ago, being trans was a mental illness. I had to go to the gender identity clinic to prove that I was not crazy, to prove that I was not a danger to my children, to prove that I was worthy of respect, and an OHIP card that had the correct identification on it. So, yes.
So he transitioned before affirmation only. And even now that we have affirmation only, this is not good enough for him.
I understand this profoundly. It's one of the reasons why I've spent so much energy in advocacy. It's been a matter of personal survival. What is the Green Party of Ontario going to do about it? They've already started. by fierce opposition, by making sure that when we're talking about trans rights, heaven forbid, we actually have a trans person talking about it. Unlike other parties that trot us out like some on a gurney, some kind of wheelie thing, like some transgender Hannibal Lecter when it's time to raise funds and then put us back in the back where we don't make any waves. Green Party has demonstrated that it walks the talk by putting not just me, but many other people just like me, not in the back room, but right here in the foreground, and saying that we deserve the best of all possible health, and that being authentic is not the same as being crazy. Thank you.
Nikki's passion is sometimes incomparable, so it's really, really difficult to follow her. And it really is a privilege for me to share the stage with her. I really commend her advocacy for many of these things. On the mental health, we know the statistics, and they are ever maddening and ever saddening. And I know how deeply each of us in this community has been impacted. You know, the Liberal Party has committed to a plan to fund a package of benefits for every worker that can be portable that will include mental health benefits. For schools in particular, we will focus dedicated supports for students, including to us LGBTQ students, to get the mental health supports that they need, particularly as it relates to catching up after the COVID pandemic, having to deal with mandatory online learning. But we've also committed to ensuring an education system and an education curriculum that respects who they are, that treats them with dignity and respect, and that they see themselves in that curriculum, because that's what often leads to these issues down the line, that they don't feel like they belong. And I know I felt that way growing up when I didn't have that same type of curriculum. And so that's what we'll continue to do. That's what the Liberal Party did. We introduced an inclusive curriculum. We will reintroduce that. And we will make sure that kids going forward have the supports that they need. We've also committed to gender affirming care and creating spaces within long-term care facilities that will treat our seniors, including LGBTQ2S seniors, with the dignity that they deserve in their golden years, and that they would receive gender-affirming, culturally diverse care. And that, from end to end, is part of the plan that we've committed to the health, because I agree with Nikki, mental health is health.
Thank you. I think we can agree that you're pretty well all on the same page around mental health. I think the only one that has a real difference is Doug Ford and the Conservatives. I think we saw them make cuts when they were first elected, and now they're investing money that is actually reinvesting money that they cut before. But anyway, I'm very confused by it. But anyway, here's the question that I want you to take a few minutes to debate on. The wait list for mental health is currently 18 months to 2 years. What is your party going to do in the meantime to get those needs met within those folks that are waiting the 18 months? And this is an open floor at this point. So anybody? Doug? So what's your party's going to do in the meantime to fill the gap? It's an open floor, anybody.
Maybe if I can start off, Jerry, and then, we're not going to recover from this pandemic and the backlogs that is created overnight. But we do have a plan in place, and part of that includes the funding commitment to ensure, one, that we address the medical and surgical backlogs, but also bring more healthcare professionals into the sector. Part of that is incentivizing people to go into healthcare, to go into these types of professions that require more people to deliver these services. They can't magically.
I didn't know about this. Grassy Narrows is an indigenous community up north in Ontario. Apparently it's been flooded and they've been evacuating people to Thunder Bay. And like nobody's mentioning that. It's so funny how, well, it's not funny, predictable, how they had like an indigenous elder start off the stuff. It's like, to me, it's like a shield. So because an indigenous elder gave a speech at the beginning, now if none of them mention anything indigenous, it's okay because they filled their like indigenous mentioning quota before the debate started. It's so disgusting.
Be created overnight. And so what we will do is set up funding for new healthcare professionals to go into the profession, people who come in from other countries who can get accreditized faster in Ontario to be able to deliver these services. These are the different levers that we can pull to create that capacity in our system to address the backlog, which is real and needs to be addressed in a timely fashion.
Okay, but the question is how are we going to do that while we're waiting for the 18 months or to hire all these people? What are we going to do? This is the real hard question for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is actually a really great question because it's about making sure that we actually act as quickly as possible so we're not sort of setting up goals and plans that go into the future, and being able to track the accountability. So, number one, as it stands, we all recognize that there is not and I think we can all recognize is that The mental health care system in Ontario is broken. No previous government, whether it's the Liberals or Conservative, whoever's held power, has ever really tackled the mental health care system in Ontario well, which is why we have
I completely agree with that. That's very accurate.
this patchwork of loose
Like which government was it? There was like this initiative. I think it might be a federal thing, but it might be provincial. I can't remember. Basically, the last like big thing that was like to tackle mental health in Canada. Um, it was like this like counseling website, and so the person you got like they could be like almost anyone. Like the qualifications for who your counselor were was very low, and you would get like a maximum of 6 30-minute sessions with this counselor, and that was like the like band-aid solution to the mental health issues in Canada, or at least in Ontario. That was like get like maximum 6 30-minute sessions with this like social worker or something. And like it was obviously like a wait to get them also. Like it was just yeah, it does like the mental health care is like non-existent.
services, and they don't necessarily work, and it's been chronically underfunded. I would think that one of the first things that we need to do is actually consult with the professionals, especially with the Ontario Mental Health Association, start moving towards mental health and health parity with respect to funding. So therefore, let's put in the investments the same way we put in investments when it comes to physical health, because we all recognize it's tied to mental health, and we move as fast as possible. I would also argue that, not argue, but I put forward for your consideration is that when it comes to the social determinants of health, the social determinants of health are actually the same when it comes to mental health. Access to housing, good employment, living a life free of discrimination and violence. All of those things lead us to better health and mental health, which means that we would have to tackle it in a more comprehensive way. So we're not just treating one symptom, but we're actually treating the cause. And that is why I think it's important for us to recognize that, when it comes to a strategy that tackles mental health and actually really puts the money into mental health care, especially for LGBT youth, especially for trans and non-binary youth, that we do it with them in mind. So we center the investments in the people who need it the most, and we measure to make sure that we get those outcomes. And that includes clearing the wait list. And the New Democratic Party is making a commitment to clearing that wait list, especially for children's mental health, within 6 months.
Helen or Brian, any wrap up for that? Anything you want to add?
Thank you. I think what you're talking about is...
Sorry, Nikki.
Sorry. I think what you're talking about is priorities. And I think the priorities of the current government are messed up. And there's a bill, I think it's Bill 124, that caps transfers to all of the organizations that fund nurses, fund long-term care, fund mental health, et cetera, cap all those transfers at 1%. Conservatives say they hate wage and price controls, but effectively what they put in place a couple of years ago was a wage control. And when you can't hire more people, when you can't increase wages, and particularly when inflation is 6%, that's the problem. People are leaving mental health, they're leaving nursing, they're leaving autism care, they're leaving long-term care. And that's the number one thing I would do if elected, and my party would get elected, is get rid of that Bill 124. The second thing I got to tell you is the problem that you're talking about is far wider than what you're talking about. It's not just mental health, and it's not just not mental health for one group. I hate to tell you that. There was a group of 30 people last night yelling about autism. A week ago, I had people complaining about a 17-year wait list for long-term care facilities in Ontario. People that are looking for long-term care aren't going to hang around for 17 years, I'm sorry to say. And you could go through too many sectors of our health society, our health sector, and the same problem exists. And so the bottom line answer is we have been bringing our budgets down. They're still in deficit, but our budget's down on the back of healthcare spending in Ontario. And that's the reality, and we need to change it. And that's the only solution for your problem, is dramatic more increases of funding, and not just for mental health, but for all those other things I mentioned as well.
Just to remind everybody that we treat everybody the same. If Doug Ford or his representative was here, we'd be treating them exactly the same, but they're not, so we get to mock them. I'm just saying. So I would ask Doug Ford at this point, when he kept everybody at 1%, what about your 13% that you took right after your first election? But anyway, go ahead, Nikki.
All right, to come back to this. I, in my past, worked in the health insurance field. And one of the things we did was provide emergency care for people out of the country and also in Canada. The trick to triage, and that is what we're talking about here, triage, is to deal with the things that are killing us fastest first. COVID has affected everybody, and the mental health holes in the mental health system that already existed from all three parties, there are decades-old holes that include my time when I was coming out as trans 25 years ago, and it hasn't always been liberal and conservative. But those holes were exposed. We need to treat this as the emergency it is. It requires immediate, urgent, non-discretionary care. This is not if or but. This is a question of stopping people from killing themselves, killing other people, harming themselves, harming other people. There can be no delay for this. The money exists within the health insurance program and the health insurance system to do this. The question is different depending on who gets elected. If we have a minority government, well, then we have a minority, some orange, red, green version of reality. I would suggest to you strongly that the green would be at the head of that list with a moral compass, for heaven's sake, regardless of who's in government. But if it's a minority government, then we'll work with us and we'll provide the practical, economic, environmental, and social sustainable solutions that we've always done. But if we get the four-letter word that is Ford in as our next government, then the Green Party is also the correct choice. Because we've demonstrated that we can convince Doug Ford that things are his idea. Remember, he's discovered electric vehicles suddenly after tearing down charging stations. He's discovered that ODSP rates should go up to help people with this.
That's the Ontario disability plan, just like, you know, if you're on disability.
Disabilities like myself stay out of hospital. See, it's not just a compassionate argument, it's a dollars and cents argument. The fact of the matter is that helping people with these terrible wait lists isn't a cost. That's a faulty argument. That won't fly.
Sorry, you have to wrap up.
I will. It's an investment in people. And the money we spend on helping people in mental health crisis isn't a cost. It helps stop them from hurting themselves and costing our society more. So we can sell that idea regardless of whether it's some kind of coalition, minority government, or indeed the four-letter word to my far left.
Okay, we're going to move on. We have to move on to this question. We have a question from the audience.
You know, I was talking today to a group about how we can educate everyone to the indigenous people of this land. And I think it's no different when it comes to education.
Is this the Blue Rivers who started? Is that her voice?
When it comes to education, when it comes to the queer community, to the 2S LGBTQIA community, we have to start at kindergarten and we have to move through to high school. And in high school, I can see that we need to put in a course that is an accredited course that is mandatory and you cannot graduate without it. To realize that the discrimination, the racism, the phobia that exists.
I am losing my shit. So we already have a sexual orientation and gender identity like curriculum that's federal. We also have more specific curriculums that are like regional for that. We also have like the critical race theory stuff already is like in all the schools in Canada. That's not enough. What we need is a course that you must pass to graduate high school that has to do with like anti-oppression. Like we already have all the brainwashing, but it's not enough. We need an accredited course that you need to graduate high school, like a religion course for queerness that you need to graduate high school. Holy fucking shit. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Is this speed okay with you guys? I sped it up. It's just like so fucking boring. Jesus Christ.
For our community is rampant still. And as well as post-secondary education, you have to take another course in order to complete your area of study, and it has to be compulsory. Otherwise, it's elective, and nobody wants to learn something they're not interested in. What are your views of how we could implement into education, not only Indigenous issues, but the health issues to make our people want to improve healthcare? We have people out there unemployed right now who are healthcare therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, because there wasn't space for them. What are you going to do to make these things compulsory, mandatory, not just saying, this party did this party did that, and I'm going to do this. But how are you going to make that something that's compulsory, not elective?
Start with.
Kristen?
Yeah, sorry.
You know what? Thank you so much for that question. I have been really struggling with what I'm seeing happening in the education system, especially when it comes to protecting our queer youth and the families that they belong to. It also means about making sure that there's a good work environment for even the queer or trans or non-binary teachers, so there's no repercussion when they want to be their true authentic selves. So the inclusive physical health, sexual health education is really critical, and I don't think it necessarily should be something that you get to opt out of, especially when we're talking about informed consent. It's talking about making sure that kids understand their body autonomy. It's also about making sure that we affirm their identity. We have to go back to the statistics is that kids who are queer and non-binary and trans are really struggling, especially when they're in school systems that don't affirm them. I live in Toronto. I live in downtown Toronto. I can see the village from my window, but I'm sure not everybody is so fortunate. So I think about the kids in.
Does anyone know where she actually lives? Because like the village is a ghetto. She's like rich. Does she actually live there? Like what does that mean? I can see the village from my window. Does she live like in Riverside or somewhere like really nice and posh that's like a few blocks? Like what does that mean? Okay, whatever.
In the rural communities, in small towns, and I think about the kids in the Catholic school system, or even having a GSA space is not available. And so I'm really proud of our party's track record in pushing for.
Dude, Catholic schools in Ontario have gay-straight alliances. There are Catholic school boards in Ontario that have like the pride flag with the Catholic school board logo on it outside their. I don't know why she keeps bringing up Catholic schools. I think it's because there was this thing that happened a couple of weeks ago, um, where in a Catholic school, I think it was in Orleans, Ontario, they the girls all started wearing shorts because most schools don't have air conditioning and it was like really hot. There was like a heat wave. Um and they were making the girls like bend over and touch their toes, and like a male teacher was going room to room making the girls bend over and touch their toes and looking at them to see how short their shorts were when they were bent over, and then like sending them to the office because they were like out of dress code. And basically the students like protested this because they were like, you guys are sexually harassing the female students, and then a bunch of the male students got arrested for this. um Sherburne and Jarvis, that's pretty sketch. Anyway, like that area. It's not like horrific, but she has a lot of money, you'd think. Anyway, whatever. Um, but yeah. So that's happened at a Catholic school like 2 weeks ago. And the response was defund Catholic schools. That was the response. So I feel like the reason she keeps bringing up Catholic schools is to play on that, because that kind of got like a lot of attention, at least on Twitter, that got a lot of attention.
Legislative change with making sure that we have that program with respect to inclusive physical sexual health education, and it should be in all publicly funded schools. So if you are public school and you're Catholic, you should be taught that as well, and that will also save lives, and it creates a safer environment for all. And it's also critically important. I think it's
I think what she's referring to is that because Catholic schools are religious based, they don't have to teach all of the stuff that the other schools don't have to teach. But that doesn't mean they don't have gay straight alliances. Like, I think she is basically conflating the two things to try to make it. I'm not trying to say the Catholic schools are the best thing ever. I just think that she's like way overhyping this.
we've seen this happen time and time again, is that if we don't fall onto the foundation of the Human Rights Code, which I'm very proud that our party led the fight in the legislature, even when we were the third party back in 2012, to make sure that trans and non-binary people are included in the Human Rights Code. That should be the foundation that builds on everything else. So the Human Rights Code, which now, of course, includes trans and non-binary people. So thank you for your question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nikki.
Well, I have to push back on one point. I was being part of the movement to include gender identity and gender expression at the federal level for well over 12 years and worked with all parties. And I remember the trans women who were there, and I remember the people who were not there. While some of the parties threw some lip service behind including gender identity at the federal level, the people who did the hard work were the trans people and the ones who suffered along the way. So I have to correct my colleague here on that one. What is back to the tremendous point that you brought up, and one that's much more positive than this other discussion. We can't have people going out into the world who don't understand that inclusivity isn't something like, oh, an afterthought. It should be hard-coded into the DNA as we go out into the world. We have doctors who go out there, well-educated in every other respect, but completely ignorant. I mean, there's an old joke in the trans community. I went to the doctor, a trans person goes to the doctor, and she says, oh, I've got a broken arm. And the doctor says, oh, I'm so sorry. I know nothing about trans issues. I guess it's a little dark for humor. But the fact is that we can't have so-called well-educated people out there considering themselves well-educated unless they've had a complete education that is inclusive in nature. And I completely agree that has to start at ground zero. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned here is that our education system is a patchwork. Here in Toronto Centre, you're probably going to get a pretty inclusive person, even if you're in the Catholic school system. In Durham, they have tremendous education system. But it seems bizarre to me, and indeed perverse, that truth, to use a word that you brought up, truth is different, and facts are different depending on what education system you're in. That's flat out wrong. We believe the truth is universal, surely, or at least consistent from one district school board to the next. So I am in complete agreement with what you're saying here, that this must be mandatory, not some liberal arts, oh, airy-fairy thing, afterthought, but hard-coded. You don't get your fancy diploma from a doctor or a lawyer or anybody else until you figure out the truth of the matter. The second part of this, which I will speak to briefly, is
We need to move on.
About helping our kids understand their own bodies, understanding their own beauty, understanding their own authenticity, and that needs to be baked into our education system, not just so they grow up to be good doctors, but so they grow up to love themselves.
Paul?
I agree completely that education is the foundation of how we build a society. I think that's where it all starts. The people that go on to exercise power and authority in our society are educated in a system that, as you described, Elder, is colonial from the outset and has all of these poisonous lessons that we carry generations. And we need to start undoing that. And that starts by reforming the education curriculum that we all go through and making sure that we undo and unlearn some of those terrible and poisonous legacies. So in a case specifically, because I believe your question was about ensuring that mental health education is part of the system, I think we're all aligned here that the education system has to be affirming of all genders, of all orientations, of different cultures and different backgrounds. But that is actually part of the thing that we're learning now, that neurodiversity, understanding different people's different abilities, both from a physical but mental perspective, has to be part of the understanding of the spectrum
of society that we need to coexist with. And I'm personally committed to that because, and I know equally, my colleagues on the stage are equally passionate and committed to this. And I think that's the lesson that we're learning here is that what you have before you, at least here on the stage, is a set of progressive candidates that are fighting for the right thing for our communities, but for a better society in Ontario. And I think that is a credit to all of us. But in each riding that we're running in, voters will have a choice as to who is in the best place to take that. And I won't speak for the fight in Toronto Centre. There's people here who are running in that riding. But I know in my riding, I'm in the best position to take that fight because otherwise it will be another crony of Doug Ford's over there taking over. So that's my commitment to you and to the people in this room, that I will be committed to an affirming and inclusive education on all aspects of the human spectrum of diversity.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think that the sex education program that the prior Liberal government proposed was good. It was put in place by a bunch of experts, and it had gender identity issues, mental health issues, sexual identity issues, reproductive issues, sex protection issues, etc. And I thought it was good, and it should be implemented. And the Ford government backtracking on that, I think it was a huge mistake. And I think it should be compulsory in both the separate schools as well as the public schools. So that's number one. Number two, though, is I really worry that your issue is far larger. And again, I'm going to say, 6 years ago as a Liberal, I was out campaigning for Kathleen Wynne. I'm from Mississauga. Mississauga might be different than the perception you had in Toronto. The negative comments that I received at the door about her sexual orientation were astonishing. I have a nightly radio show, and last year I had the opportunity to interview your Reverend here. And I'm not sure if you know her story, and I hope you don't mind me telling a little bit about it, but she was removed from her post as a pastor in a church in my riding in Mississauga Lakeshore because she came out as trans. And the people that I know in your congregation thought you were spectacular, thought you were a fantastic preacher. She was loved in her church, but she was fired because of her gender orientation, because she came out as trans. And that's wrong. And if it was in a job, laws would potentially apply, but the Human Rights Code doesn't apply to religious institutions. Did anyone see what happened to Trudeau? When was it? 2 days ago in Vancouver. There is a hatred in Canada today that I've never seen in my life before, whether it's against Kathleen Wynne, against Reverend Joplin, against Trudeau. And I got to tell you, you said you were from Saskatchewan. I was in North Battleford, Saskatchewan 2 months ago. My company has business in northern Saskatchewan. I met with the chiefs of 2 Indian band councils, one 2 bands and another one 8 bands. And they said today,
Okay. I know that they call themselves Indian bands, but I thought that white people are not supposed to use the word Indian. Am I wrong? I thought that was like the woke social justice position in Canada these days. Am I wrong? Someone please correct me.
we're embarrassed of the Canadian flag because the only people that fly the Canadian flag are people that are white supremacists. And they have trucks and they have F. Trudeau on their bumper. And that hatred exists in Canada today like it's never done before. And that is the most important thing we need to put a stop to get anywhere close to what you're trying to achieve. We've got to get rid of the hatred in politics and in the politic in Canada.
Thanks, Brian.
I do believe that part of the hatred is because Trudeau was the first prime minister that ever marched at Pride. I do believe that a lot of the right-wing ideas from the United States had come here to Canada. And I do believe that the fact that we had the orange man, nothing to do with the NDP, Trump, and he gave permission to racists to come out of the closet, and it's very contagious. Hatred is horribly contagious. And as an LGBTQ, as a lesbian, as a member of this community that would have suffered immensely if I were in the United States or in Nicaragua, I really am afraid of the hatred against us. I really am afraid. Remember when the drag queens were reading to the children in the Glad Day bookstore, and then a pastor came, and the pastor, bye-bye. Okay, and the pastor came to yell that Jesus wouldn't have liked that, which is totally wrong because Jesus wore a dress. So anyway, he said Jesus wouldn't have liked men who wear dresses. But I'm terrified. I have never been afraid in Canada of being discriminated against because of my gender, my orientation, or my ethnicity. But I think that now we have to be concerned about that. And I am wondering, as representatives of your parties, if you have a plan set up in order to educate folks a lot more, so we start either sending the racists, the bigots to the closet again, or changing their mind. What is your plan? Do you have?
And we'll start with Nikki. So it's not that they all want to have sex with Trudeau.
Oh, yes.
I thought he was really popular. That's what I thought was going on.
That's one of my jokes, but I didn't want to say it in church.
Go ahead, Nick.
Just to be clear, what question am I answering?
Why would you say that? Why would you? Everything out of the drag queen's mouth is like not appropriate. Why would you say that shit?
The question is, what are your plans? What are the, sorry, the echo is bad and my accent is strong. So the question is, what are the plans of your respective parties to contrarrest this wave of hatred and bigotry that has invaded Canada? You know, I used to be proud to see the Canadian flag, and now I'm terrified, like you said, when I see it.
So, how do we do that? You know, I've been involved in trans advocacy for over 25 years. And I've marched, I've got over here, one of the first marches, I did the first march in 2009, and the first march on Yonge Street in 2013. And we got opportunities to speak, and you were there, remember? Yeah. And we got opportunities to speak in public. And what we talked about was not about being trans, although we were out and proud. What we talked about is how we were members of society, how we wanted to contribute, how we wanted to participate, how we wanted to be with our family, how I desperately wanted to go see my children at school in their school plays, simple things. That communicates more sometimes than shouting and screaming, although I've done my fair share of shouting and screaming. Communicating that we are here, valuable members of society, and that anybody who is a bigot is not just an unpleasant person, but stupid. Because we need everybody in Canada and Ontario and in Toronto working together, not just the people we agree with. That's the way people think to the south of us here. There is such a thing as Canadian values that go right across gender and cultural lines. And it's the idea of fairness, mutual support, the fact that because of the weather, we need each other to survive and thrive. That's a core value. What will we do? Well, we're already doing it in the Green Party. At the risk of harping on about it, I'm here. We're making sure that trans people, equity-seeking candidates, of which I'm only one of many within the Green Party, we're making sure that equity-seeking voices are on the stage. So we don't have to say, oh, they need our help, or they need our help. We can say, we need your help. We can speak about us in ways that are far more compelling and, frankly, more inclusive. Whether we form part of the minority government, which we all hope, led by the Greens, with the participation of red and orange folks in some particular combination, or whether we have the four-letter words that is to our far left, regardless, people like myself will be there, and that will do.
We have to move on, Nikki. Go ahead, Paul.
Will there ever be an instance where this Tim doesn't go over his time? What the fuck?
So I think there are multiple answers to the question, and some of them are structural that we need to put in place. We need to have foundational guardrails and foundational understandings, rules, or else there is no such thing as a society without any rules. And there are things like human rights, constitutional rights that we need to enforce and make sure are enforced. We have, as Kristen adverted to earlier, the Human Rights Code, and that is an important document here in Ontario to ground our understanding of what is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable. So I'm coming from that lens. I'm a lawyer. I fought for equality. I fought for constitutional rights all the way to the Supreme Court for our community to be included in spaces and institutions like higher education. So I know what that means. But I also agree with Nikki that it's not just legislation. It's not just rules. We need to be able to talk to each other across our differences. We need to be able to have forums like this where we discuss ideas without descending into partisan sniping, without descending into character attacks or personal attacks. And I know that sounds really idealistic, but that is actually what we need to keep striving for. Because otherwise, we don't have a society that we can keep working towards. We have silos and bastions of isolation, and that's what leads to division. That's what will lead to more and more of these types of demonstrations. And unfortunately, what we see then will result in other contexts is civil war and unrest. And that's something that I don't want to come to Canada. That is something that I will fight tooth and nail against. And that is why, regardless of what happens in this election, I personally will stand across the aisle and work with anyone who's willing to advance the causes that we all passionately care about. Because that's the kind of Canada, that's the kind of Ontario that I'm committed to.
Thank you. Brian?
I think that the hatred that we've got right now is because partisan politics has become extreme. And you're going to think potentially this simplistic solution, but I honestly believe that proportional representation is the solution. And let me explain that to you if I could. You don't know what it is, or you do know what it is? But proportional representation, I think, would have a dramatic impact on the Canadian Parliament or the Ontario legislature. So I think that the people that had the trucker occupation, which I disagreed with, but they had a view that wasn't being listened to. And they represented, based on polls, 10 to 15% of the population, and no one was listening to them. If we had proportional representation, Maxime Bernier and his party would have 28 or so seats in Parliament. And they would have realized they're a very small minority. They thought they were this huge majority. And at the same time, the Reform Party, that I think took control of the Conservative Party for a while, only did that because they were concentrated in one area, just like the Bloc Québécois are concentrated in Quebec. If we had proportional representation, the Reform Party would be lower in its concentration historically, and the Bloc Québécois would be lower. It would be equal to one person, one vote. I think that the Conservative Party leadership right now is the best example of what's going wrong, is because we have this one party that is on the center right, and there's study after study that shows when you've got a party that's either on the center right or the center left, what ends up happening is the leaders end up catering to the extreme. And we've got a populist partisan that.
Okay, other Canadians, is it not the case that Conservatives in Canada generally agree that the Conservative Party has drifted to left and that there's no real Conservatives left in Canada? Is that not the case? I thought that was why Maxime Bernier got so popular, because he was like the only like kind of traditional conservative option. Am I wrong? Like, somebody tell me what you think.
it's probably going to win. The Conservative leadership is going to be the most right-wing person that we've ever had leading a major party in Canada today. Even more right-wing than Ford, I have to tell you. So I think proportional representation is the solution. And my son's going to hate me to say this, but frankly, I think mandatory voting, which Australia has, is another potential solution. Because all these parties, what they do is they go out and identify votes by knocking on votes for one reason only, so they can get them to vote on election day. If you didn't have to identify and get out the vote, you know what you'd have to do at the door? You'd actually have to talk to people and persuade them, because you knew they were going to vote, so you'd actually have to have a conversation. So I think that the reform of the democratic system is the solution to our problems.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just coming back to the issue around hate and what can parties do to prevent hate? As a human rights advocate and someone who's actually fought for marriage equality, that was a decade-long legal battle. And obviously, Reverend Janice Joplin, sorry, for even just highlighting the fact that first marriage took place here. This was not necessarily something that came to the queer community, the queer and trans community, because out of the kindness of the hearts of the government that they said, we're going to do this. We had to fight for this legislative right. We had to fight to ensure that, gender identity, gender expression was going to be included in the Ontario Human Rights Commission. That was through the Toby's Act in 2012. And it was actually Reverend Sherry DeNovo, who was like the most winning MPP in our party, who helped pass all the legislation, including banning conversion therapy in 2015 and making sure that parents like myself, who's not the birth.
Wait. So conversion therapy was banned in 2015. Why did Christine Wong-Tam in her opening statement say, we need to make sure we ban conversion therapy? Am I wrong? Didn't she say that? If it happened in 2015 and it happened in 2020, why does it need to happen again? Also, there's conversion therapy laws municipally, provincially, and federally. Toronto definitely has it covered. What is she talking about?
Would be able to put my name on my son's birth certificate without having the humiliating effect of going through adopting him after going through provisions of assistance through birthing. All of those things meant that you needed to have legislative change. And this is where I absolutely agree with you, Paul. Governments cannot delay, they cannot deny that change. But those changes didn't come easy. They came with the fight of the community who rose up and said, we need to have those changes, which is why pride is important, why pride is political. And every single time we've been able to take step forward in the pathway of justice, it has been on the backs of our community members and also in compelling and forcing government to do the right thing. So hate is not something we just teach away. I know that for a fact, because I've lived long enough life to know that. Hate is something that we must legislate away, and we make it illegal and we make it criminal. So therefore we can protect our trans and queer kids at all costs, because they need to know that the law is behind them. Thank you very much.
All right, Pigeon. Just before we take it, we're just going to take a couple minutes, let everybody get a drink of water and all that, and wet a whistle for a few minutes. I'd just like to point out, thank you, Sherwin, the Pride across Ontario came together this time. So there's something happening. Because although we're a protest and everything, we have our drama, so I'm just saying, but this is the first time in my lifetime, and it's the first time I've seen prides come together to do something with Queer Vote. And on that note, we'll take a couple of minutes, let everybody get a drink and go to the bathroom. And we have coffee and stuff in the back. So we'll be right back in a few minutes.
Why did they leave the mic on? What? Okay, so while we're waiting for them to come back, any major thoughts? Also, just so you know, I think it's okay that you commented on First Nation stuff. You're just explaining to non-Canadians the gist of things. Yeah. People that are not Canadian don't realize we are technically still part of the monarchy. Our government is started in session. The session of the government is started by the proxy of the Queen. Yeah. I think it's good that you explain things. Is this a thing? Queer orgs leaving the mic on so you feel like you're taking part, lol. Okay, just so you know. This is the hashtag. The only people commenting on this, I think, are two of Christine Wong-Tam's friends, based on what I've seen on Twitter, and the actual Vote Queer Ontario Twitter. Nobody is commenting on this. Currently, there are 44 people. Actually, maybe it's gone down because we're on a break now. Currently, there are 42 people watching the stream. The 33 people watching the stream from my stream right now are like, that's almost as many people as who are actually watching this. Like, nobody gives a shit. This is so stupid. Oh my god, why? That's so cringe, bro. It just like it's a kind of unprofessional. It seems like you don't know what to do with your audio system.
We good? Test. What's that? Yep. Yeah, just give me a thumbs up.
So we're live now. So sorry, I kind of choked on my granola bar. Lol. We're live now, so we cannot watch it at sped up speed, unfortunately.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we continue with the debate, I would just like to give some thanks. My name is AJ Adams. My pronouns are he, him. I'm one of the folks who are part of the organizing team for the Queer Vote Ontario coalition. So Queer Vote Ontario, we are a nonpartisan coalition of 2S LGBTQ organizations across the province, from Ottawa to Toronto, Thunder Bay, North Bay, Kincardine, Windsor, and so on. And we are all working together to get queer issues on the agenda, both for the Ontario election this year, as well as every future federal, provincial, and territorial election. So we are no longer forgotten when it comes to policies from every political party. So on behalf of the Queer Vote Ontario team, I would like to thank our candidates, our moderators, Martha Chavez and Jerry Attrick, everyone here in the audience, and everyone at home. Whether you are participating by listening to this debate, taking the pledge at queervote.ca, or just keeping queer and trans issues and people in mind when you go to the polls on June 2nd, you are working towards creating a province and a country that is more inclusive, welcoming, diverse, and equitable. So thank you, and I turn it back to our wonderful moderators and our wonderful candidates.
Thanks, AJ. All right, we got a tough one for you. This came in, I cannot release their name. They are afraid of repercussions from management because it's been an ongoing thing. So this is going to be about Ontario Corrections. Ontario Corrections has been in crisis for over 40 years. Every government has made cuts, privatized training, and so forth, and services within the prisons in Ontario. They have made so many cuts, there is no rehabilitation programs. Staff assaults are daily, and understaffed, and recruitment is at all-time low. People are quitting at enormous rates, and they want change. Every time someone speaks up, they are hit with repercussions by their management team. They want to know what you're going to do when elected to end the crisis in corrections in Ontario. That's a tough one. And I think we start with Nikki this time.
Thank you for your questions. I can tell you from friends who've had lived and sometimes died in correctional care that the warehousing of people on an institutional basis is an abuse, a profound abuse. And the fact
They asked, how are we going to reform the prison system? And this person's response is that prisons are abusive. Dude, that's not the question.
that our correctional facilities are filled with people whose principal crime is being different, addicted, having mental health issues, or being part of a minority that is disproportionate, speaks to the core problems in our society today. Warehousing. You know, it's come to the stage now where correctional facilities, prisons, jails are considered an alternative way of warehousing people. Now, I know this sounds a little odd, but this speaks to our housing crisis in general. living on the streets, being underhoused, being poor. These lead folks to come outside of the law and then be put into increasingly overcrowded correctional facilities. And I have sympathy for the employees who try their best to be as compassionate as we can be for those in correctional institutions. After all, it's been well said that judge a society based on how it treats its prisoners. Judge a society based on how it treats those people who are most oppressed. And we're in a house of worship here, and the notion of Jesus as a social activist speaks to exactly those points. What do? Well, it's money. And again, we've got to stop thinking about costs and start thinking about this as an investment in human beings. That's the problem. Not just the human beings who are incarcerated, but the human beings who deserve our support, including this person who I feel for cannot identify themselves for fear of repercussions. The problem we have here is that the province is breaking the law in terms of how it's treating prisoners by those in correctional facilities. We have to hold them to account, and perhaps some of my friends who are lawyers on the stage here would have something to say about that. Nothing else. Making the government uncomfortable is the job of opposition. And we, the Green Party of Ontario, take that role very, very seriously.
Thank you, Nikki. Paul?
So I agree with a lot of what Nikki had to say in terms of we need to divert a lot of the problems that go through the criminal justice system into other avenues. And we also have committed in our platform funds to enhance diversion programs, mental health court, and other ways to get people out of the criminal justice system and then ultimately out of the prison and jail system. One of the worst things this government did, and if people don't know this, is that the Liberal government established an anti-racism directorate. What this government did was take that anti-racism directorate and shove it in the same ministry that handles jails and prisons. That's what this government's idea of an equitable society is, or what its idea of law and order is that crime equates people of color. So that has to stop. And we need to have a government that actually recognizes, as others on the stage have recognized, that there are social determinants of health and there are social determinants to community safety. I think with this question, though, and I just want to focus a little bit on the questioner, because I think what they're talking about is also labor relations protections, because it is still a workplace. And so for people who are employed by the government to take care of people in prison, they are entitled to a safe workplace, just as like all Ontarians are. And again, this government, as soon as it came to power, reversed everything that the previous Liberal government did in terms of protecting workers and protecting safety. And that's something that we've committed to doing, is reintroducing a lot of those worker safety protections. And I hope that we can continue to work together with public sector unions to enhance those protections for workers like this anonymous person, who unfortunately, I understand their concern about repercussions. And we'll make sure we'll protect whistleblowers in the private and public sector who bring forward these complaints and concerns. We need to do better with our workers here in Ontario.
I think our criminal justice system is broken. I really do. And the statistics that are most worrisome to me, and I don't know them exactly, but the percentage of Indigenous people in our population is this, and the percentage of Indigenous people in our prisons is this. The percentage of African Canadians in our population is this, and the percentage of African Canadians in our prison system is that. And I just can't believe that those statistics actually reflect the percentage of people that are criminals. I think it is that mental health issues, that psychological issues, that housing issues, that addiction issues are being treated by putting people into prison. And I don't believe if I was in front of a judge versus some other people in this audience tonight were in front of a judge, that they would get as lenient treatment as I would get. And that's wrong. And some of the people that I mentioned earlier in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, told me that if I looked like you, Brian, and I had a baseball cap and a hockey jersey on, I would have been fine. But if I was there as an Indigenous person or as an African Canadian, I would have been put in jail. And I think that we have a problem of racism in our criminal justice system that is the bedrock problem and solution to your issue. Because if we actually had Indigenous people and African American, African Canadian people in our prison system at the population that they deserve to be in, equal to the whites in the population that are in the system, our prison population will go down dramatically. Now, we might have to have far better mental health. We might have to have far better addiction issues. We might have to have far better housing, because I do think what often happens is people that have got addiction problems and they're living on the street and we can't deal with a problem, they go to prison. Too often, prison is the solution for dealing with problems rather than being the last resort. And too often, the criminal justice system is the opposite of colorblind, and it should be.
Thank you for that question, and I'm sorry that it feels like it's unsafe for you to speak out, especially in the workplace. No one should feel unsafe, and you certainly should not be left unprotected. And with respect to the physical violence that you may be subjected to, that is absolutely unacceptable. Which is why I think we fall back on some of the, which is why we do need to fall back on laws. We need to fall back on the workplace safety environment. We need to be able to look at how it is that your employer, in this case, by way of extension, that the Ontario government has failed to protect you. And that requires conversation. It requires us. I mean, I don't want to judge that I know the answer, but I want to have a conversation to understand what do you need, so I can center your experience directly into the solution and probably talk to a lot of other coworkers that are there so that we can actually design that to work for you. And that's important. The other thing I would offer you is that, when it comes to diverting people away from the criminal justice system, that's going to be critical. Right now, we have the court system that's backlogged. We have the overrepresentation of people of color, especially Black and Indigenous people, in the prison system, where we have more people, especially when it comes to Indigenous women. We've got more Indigenous women living in the prison system than we have living outside the prison system. There is something very wrong, and the effects of colonization are there. So the structural inequities that lead to that outcome must be evaluated, and we must act upon it. So absolutely, having a Ontario Anti-Racism Secretariat and Directorate is absolutely critical, but the NDP is also...
The solution to solving issues in prison is to waste more government on making some woke, like, what did she say? A secretary of like diversity or anti-racism in Ontario or something? What did she just say?
Committed to creating Secretariat and Directorate is absolutely critical, but the NDP evaluated, and we must act upon it. So absolutely, having a Ontario Anti-Racism Secretariat and Directorate is...
We need an anti-racism secretariat and director in Ontario. That's the number one issue, not like the way that the Indigenous women are forced into horrific shit because there's no opportunities for them and there's no one there to help them. And like the abortion access in Indigenous communities, okay, whatever.
Absolutely critical, but the NDP is also committed to creating a 2S LGBTQI directorate, so we can actually then implement our inclusion action plan. So it's about making sure we have the structural change that's necessary, so we are able to address the problems systematically as opposed to individually. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I have to take exception to that last remark. The
All
fact
right,
of the matter
open
is that
debate.
on the provincial, we have provincial problems, but diversion also happens at the municipal level. And in the past, during COVID, we've seen the city of Toronto become defunded around support mechanisms like park ambassadors, like the Toronto City Police Force. The diversion should happen at the provincial level, but must also happen at the municipal level. And to suggest that, oh, there's nothing you could do about this beforehand is simply untrue.
Would you like to respond?
I'll respond again, if you want. I think it's irrefutable that diversion is the duty of the provincial government and the municipal police force, and that the institutions in place to divert people to adequate mental health care, to drug treatment, to other means of dealing with people who have antisocial behavior is not just a provincial one, it's a municipal one. And my friend to the left here understands that and should be honest about it.
So what's the answer to protecting the officers so they can protect the prisoners who protect society? That's the other question that comes up because of the staff assaults, because inmates are not getting the programming they need to reform or whatever they need, and the mental health and everything else. I'm not talking about the improportional, the inappropriate representation within that. That's a whole nother issue again. But what about that officer that can't speak up, or the one that's getting assaulted, or they can't protect the inmate from the other inmate, and then you can't protect society?
Absolutely right about this, that this is a workplace health and safety thing, which is genuinely under the provincial auspice. And you spoke very clearly to that, I think, the need for whistleblower protection, the need for adequate supports for both the employees, like the corrections officers, and adequate support for the people who are in correctional facilities so that they don't reoffend, so that they can re-enter society and become more productive. Once again, I hate to harp on these things, but we are talking about something that is not just morally correct, but economically the right thing to do, because having someone go through this revolving door where they get clean and sober in prison or in correctional facility and then come out with no job, no house, no future is we have the same, it's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So yeah, I think Paul answered that very well.
Anybody else want to add anything? Or
I think it's really important for us to sort of make sure we have conversations with those who are directly impacted. So therefore, we actually design those solutions together. I don't know if it's a matter of the ratio of staff to perhaps people who are actually in the incarcerated. It's unknown to me, what type of protocol was initiated. And of course, when it comes to all government institutions, there are all sorts of protocols. So I want to make sure that we have that conversation with this individual. And I would say that if this is how you're feeling, and this is really quite systemic, is that we need to be able to find a way for you to be able to communicate this safely so that we can be able to address it. At the end of the day, when it comes to systemic solutions and systemic problems, we need to be able to design that solution so therefore it's permanent and it's not just sort of one-off, because that doesn't necessarily get to the structural problem that I think I have heard your caller, when the way you phrase that question, is that they're experiencing. So it's not just one person that's experiencing it, perhaps it's something systemic. And that's really worth evaluating, and I would take a more comprehensive approach.
The problem with the more comprehensive approach you describe, it's like looking at a building that's on fire and saying, how hot are the flames? The building is on fire, you need to put the fire out. And so whether we're talking about whether we've got bad training, we have too many people incarcerated for the wrong reasons, and we have employees who don't feel safe. Right? So, this is, I'm sorry, I think perhaps you've been in politics too long, because we need more consultation. We need more feedback. We need more reviews. We don't. We know what the problem is. There are too many people in jail for the wrong reasons, and the employees in there need our help and support. And the cure for that is not more reviews, not more expensive consultants, but money to support the system so that the people don't come back into the system and cost society as a whole more money. It is not a case of let us study the flames to see how high they go. Let's put the bloody fire out.
go ahead, Brian.
I think whether diversion is the right word or not, I don't know, but less people in the system, I do think is the solution. And I don't think, and I'm not sure, right, that you read analogy about the fire or not. Clearly, if there's a fire, you have to put it out. But sometimes we only think about the immediate problem rather than the flow of oil that's going to that furnace. And maybe you should stop the systematic problem, like the flow of oil, and give it less oxygen, or whatever the right analogy is. I'm not sure. I think the problem is not the funding. And I think if we spend more funding, we'll go the way of the United States, which has got tons more prisons and a lot more people in prison. And that's not the solution. The solution is a complete reform of our criminal justice system that doesn't warehouse a whole bunch of people in prisons that don't deserve to be in prisons. And you're going to not like it because I'm going to go somewhere else, and my son's going to say, Brian, you keep on going to other things. But long-term care is another thing that's exactly the same. Long-term care, what we're doing is we're warehousing our aged in long-term care. And some people will say, you got to put more money into long-term care. The reality is what we got to do is have less people in institutionalized long-term care and have home care. That's the only solution that the baby boom is going to be able to actually have a reasonable senior life, is by personal care workers being funded to the appropriate level so they can stay at home. And too often we go with the quick solution, which is putting more money at a problem. And what you end up doing is actually never addressing the systemic long solution. So the systemic long solution to prisons is getting the indigenous population in the prisons down, getting the African Canadian population down, and only people that deserve to be in prisons should be in prisons. And it's the same solution for long-term care. It should be a last resort. People should be funded to stay at home. And I could use a couple of other examples where too often we go for the quick hit, gimmicky solution, short-term solution, rather than going through the long-term systemic solution to the problem.
Brian, I'm in a weird position of agreeing with you on a lot of things, which is strange but pleasant. And I appreciate that this is a collegial group that we have up here, but I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you can accept that the house, to take this metaphor for far too long a walk, that the house is on fire and we should shut off the fuel that's providing the fire. They are not mutually exclusive, but we have to recognize that people are dying in prison, that correctional officers are having breakdowns and eventually leaving the system because the working conditions are too poor right now. And so it's not gimmicky to want to fix this right now, immediately to solve the symptoms of the problem, nor is it exclusive, does it exclude the idea of fixing the systemic issues, which is what I described before, the fact that there are people going into the system that are not being diverted out of it by virtue of perhaps having poverty, mental health issues, or being somehow different in some way, like having fed trans. Literally, you could be put in prison for being trans not too long ago, not too far away from where we are right now. And God forbid that happens. I mean, we're in Toronto Centre, Toronto the good. God forbid this should happen to you somewhere a little, in a different, slightly different area code, because the level of treatment you're going to get is vastly different. I can tell you, I've been pulled over for DWT, driving while trans, in other parts of Ontario, and it is a terrifying, it's funny, but it is.
What the fuck is he talking about? What is he talking about? This is not a thing.
Room by people who have absolute control over whether you go into a men's prison or into a woman's prison. And I can tell you that I consider myself very courageous, but I have rarely been more frightened in my life than when I was held temporarily in custody for DWT. So the two are not mutually exclusive. It is not gimme to want to make sure that people who are in prison, maybe shouldn't be in prison right now, should get out. That the employees should be dealt with fairly right now. And also make sure that we do the other longer term, smart, environmentally sustainable, socially sustainable, economically sustainable things that are good for society as a whole and good for all of the people here and perhaps watching elsewhere, including our friend who I hope is still watching and sending good vibes out to you there. You've got someone who is, well, sending good vibes to you.
Sherwin.
As well as passionate on your behalf.
Go ahead, Sherwin.
Sorry, because I know we're tight for time, I want to change the subject a little bit, because I promised some queer seniors that I would not leave here without asking this question. Because we can talk seniors, but when it comes to queer seniors, what are your plans? Prior to joining Pride Toronto, I worked at Vibrant Healthcare Alliance as the Director for Community Health, and I saw firsthand how seniors are being treated. At the end of the day, many of us are able to buy that extra coffee at Tim Hortons. Our seniors are living on very minimal. So that's for regular seniors. Imagine if you're a queer senior. We can talk about nursing homes. What are we going to do to address the lack of training and the lack of supports for our queer seniors as they look towards retirement home and all of those pieces? So your plan on that. And last but not least, I know there is at least 2 or 3 other prides here. Okay? Pride Toronto is an economic driver for the province of Ontario. My colleague in Quebec is getting 120% more from the province of Quebec than we are getting from the province of Ontario. My colleague in New York is getting 163% more from the state of New York than the city of Toronto. Than Pride Toronto. However, we bring in a lot more. So 2 things, your plans for seniors and how you plan to fund not just Pride Toronto, but all the other prides. the over 30 prides in the province of Ontario.
Dude, why do prides need more funding? What do they do? What do they do to help people? They don't do anything. It's a publicity stunt. Why do they need funding? Like literally, Christine Wong Tam started this. One of her opening statements was we need to like put more funding into like queer homelessness shelters for youth or something like that. Like put money into that shit instead. What the fuck is Jesus Christ?
Long-term care seniors first, and then we'll tackle the pride, and then we'll wrap up. So we'll start with Paul.
So I'll give you some pretty direct answers because we are running a bit late, but just pretty direct answers on the long-term care issue and the seniors issue. So one, we've committed as a party to end end for-profit long-term care, right? So profiting off of seniors has to stop. Not everyone wants to go into long-term care.
Nobody wants to go to long-term care.
But that may well be an option for some people, right? Some people, like long-term care can be defined in different ways. It could be supportive housing and communities of care, right? So, but some people want to stay in the home that they have built, the home that they've stayed in, and their home that they've raised their families in. And we need to build a parallel home care system, and we need to increase the funding to do that. To the point, though, about queer seniors and seniors from marginalized communities, we need to ensure that the people delivering that care are receiving the appropriate training, and that is a condition of them being licensed to deliver that care. That is part of the commitment that we have in our platform, is that long-term care and home care will be delivered gender affirming, culturally affirming, in ways that respect the dignity of the seniors, who ultimately is what the care is for. And then the other point, which is something that you raised as well, we've committed to topping up the old age security top-ups that the province pays for, so that on average, seniors in Ontario will get $1,000 more. That's part of our commitment to the seniors community, and in particular, those within our 2S LGBTQ communities that will benefit from those overall commitments.
Go ahead, Brian.
I think this has been the biggest tragedy, and not and queer seniors are undoubtedly a problem. All seniors are an issue. It's been the biggest tragedy in the last 2 years, is how we have treated seniors in long-term care. And the mortality, the statistic I think is 78% of all the people that died during COVID were in long-term care facilities, and it is a unbelievable, not embarrassment, but tragedy, and it's I think at the foot of the current provincial government. Just no question about it. We have been warehousing people in institutions that they don't want to be in. And the solution is not more long-term care. We have a baby boom that is entering the seniors' years, if not already in it, and we cannot build enough seniors' homes to house them. It is absolutely impossible. And then in 10 years, half of them are going to be empty. So it's stupid to do that. It's just absolutely stupid. The only solution is personal care workers and at home. And this Bill 124 that capped the funding to personal care workers and home care at 1% was part of the problem. And you saw Doug Ford gave them a couple $100 million just a week before the election as a potential way to keep them quiet from complaining during the election. So the number one solution to your problem is that we have to fund adequately home care with the type of care that we need. I think the other thing that I have to tell you, though, and again, this is a systemic problem, is we are the first generation in history that have spent more on people my age and older than we do on people 30 and under. And that is a real problem. So we are spending a lot of money on seniors. We're not spending enough money on youth. And that, think about that. The first generation in history that is overfunding on seniors. And I'm a senior, and so therefore I'm one of those people that is benefiting that funding. That is, I think, a significant problem. And I think the last issue is that what we have in Ontario and in Canada is a system where we have lengthened people's lives dramatically with pharmaceuticals. A lot of seniors don't take their pharmaceuticals because they can't afford them. And that is a another tragedy. Pharmacare that the federal government is talking about may be a solution. And as you probably know, lots of seniors end up going to hospitals to get the pharmaceuticals that they get for free at the hospital in the emergency room that they can't afford to pay for at the pharmacy.
We've got to move
so
on.
that's another solution to the problem.
Thank you very much for that question, and I think it's critically, very, very important. The Ontario New Democratic Party is making a commitment specifically to build 50,000 new long-term care beds. And as much as we don't necessarily want more institutions or more facilities, we're going to need them. One of the fastest growing segments of our population are the seniors. And for many families, they just don't have the ability to take care of their aging relatives despite how much care that they love them. So we're also committed to taking out the profit of long-term care facilities that has been, unfortunately, Doug Ford and previous governments have actually opened that door for for-profit, privatized long-term care facilities. And it's actually led to a decline in the quality of care. I think we can all see that, especially during COVID. There was the greatest casualties, over 4,000 deaths among seniors. We basically rode out the COVID pandemic based on the backs of seniors that we've lost. So that is about making sure that the system works. The other thing is the party is committed to hiring 10,000 PSWs. So these are personal support workers who will actually invest in people so that they can stay housed. Not everybody needs long-term care facilities right away, but we need to be able to help people live independently so that they can stay housed for as long as possible. And that includes also the hiring of 30,000 registered nurses. We're talking about revolutionizing the entire sector so that we can take care of our seniors properly, but also plan for the changes in the future. To the point around Pride, Sherman, I can't tell you how excited I am that, number one, Pride is back this year, bigger and better than ever before, and especially the program that I've seen. I was at your launch. It's going to be spectacular with the event of Black Global Pride. And it's woefully shameful that the provincial government hasn't been more supportive, not just of Toronto Pride, but all prides. If we're going to pull ourselves out of the pandemic, it's going to be led with arts and culture, which is a sector that's been hit particularly hard. And we know that prides, all prides, from city to urban areas, city to rural areas, actually save lives. That oftentimes is that place where communities gather. So our commitment is to actually fund the culture program in the city, in the province, is to make sure that those investments flow as quickly as possible. For every dollar spent, we get multiple dollars return. It's a very solid investment in the Pride community and all the organizers that
We're going to come back to this
do
question.
that work by volunteer. Oh, okay. You want?
Yeah,
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's
Thank
okay.
you.
No problem.
I'm sorry I rushed that answer, but I can
It's
give you
okay.
the second half later.
Go ahead, Nikki.
No double dipping. Okay.
Thank you, Matt Adam.
This is a big series of questions. Let me say a little plug for my website, nikkyward.ca. There are some links there through to a seniors debate that we did on provincial issues about a week or so ago. In it, we talked about specific green plans for aging in place, personal support workers, and what our plans are for that. Talking about LGBTQ folks, let me first say that I'm very well preserved, but I am now technically a senior. I would joke that it's because my heart is pure that I look so good, but I won't, because it's a tough room. I can tell you, Martha, it's a tough room. Look, I am also a past and executive in the insurance industry, where we dealt with the costs associated with providing insurance products and the mathematics behind this, the actuarial science behind this, and there is science. I am also honored to build the Canadian Association of Retired Persons Health Insurance Program, the whole benefits plan, not just design the brochure, but design the maths. That's not bragging. It's to say that when I talk about economic sustainability, I do know what I'm talking about here. I am also a proud former director of the Senior Pride Network. And here we get down to the brass tacks. 6 years ago, while I was doing that, we went to the former government and we said, this is a system that has been broken by several governments of all stripes. And that the issue is not whether it's public or private. The issue is that long-term care causes people who are older and members of our community to go back into the closet and hide their authenticity for fear of not being treated correctly. Because the problem is not bad education, although that's a big part of it, Paul. The problem is an almost complete lack of regulation and enforcement. And so in my work as the Senior Pride Network, we identified public and private facilities that consistently broke the rules, that consistently mistreated LGBTQ folk, and weren't punished for it. So the lack of regulation of this system and the lack of enforcement didn't just make life terrible for people who are members of the LGBTQ community, but directly contributed to the deaths that we saw in the past 2 years. That which is predictable is preventable. And the deaths that we've seen, not all of them, but many of them were preventable. And they are come about as a direct result of not just this government's inaction. Let's face it, this person over here, the icy person over there, has got some blood on his hands. But the truth is that this is a legacy from other governments flip-flopping backwards and forwards and trading blows and trading money between their most favored providers.
Okay, we're going to try to wrap up the last question.
Better regulation and better enforcement, whether it's public or private. That's a discussion for another day.
Excellent. Sherwin, do you just want to repeat the questions about the prides? There's actually 52.
I was excited when I got on that call and saw over 25 prides, and they all are singing from the same hymnal. And yes, how are you planning to really support? And if you're coming with change, we love change, but oh God, give us the ones that fall. And the bigger the bills, the better. We give enough.
Actually, I realize I'm speaking out of turn. Kristen was talking about this before, and I'll give her a chance to finish her ideas there if there are other ones to roll out.
That's very generous of you, Nikki. Yeah, and Sherman, again, back to the issue about pride funding. You know, you and I have a long history, and you know, interestingly enough, I actually worked with Doug Ford at City Council many years ago, and I saw what a Ford government can do, especially when it comes to the LGBT community. It's not raising the flag was symbolic, and not, you know, marching in the Pride Parade was symbolic, but you know, there was a deliberate attempt to defund and to reduce the funding of Pride, and specifically Pride Toronto. So I was able to successfully fight that on the floor of City Council, not 1 year, but literally 4 years in a row that had to be done. One thing I would offer you is that, you know, the New Democratic Party, we've got 12% of our candidates belonging to the Rainbow family. And I know that every single one of them are coming from diverse communities across Ontario. This is a big issue for our caucus. We will be fighting to make sure that the funding will be flowing, but also we're going to do it through two strategies. One is the new Ontario culture strategy that we plan to create. So therefore we look at prides for what they are, which is the economic driver of tourism, for job and retail, and also the incubation of Canadian music and artistic talent. That, to me, is a smart investment, and it will cost very little compared to what the big global dollars will be. So I know that you will have the support of a very strong 12% of the caucus, you know, it's over 10%, but, you know, we will be fighting for that. The other thing, of course, is coming back to the inclusion plan. So the inclusion action plan that takes a look at all the different streams and making sure that we put an LGBT inclusion lens over everything. Of course, education, absolutely healthcare, we talked about that, and long-term care, but also culture, and also making sure that we are going to fund, resource, and those LGBT-specific organizations, which includes Pride, to make sure that they can deliver the service in the ground, in the community, so where people will be able to access them. Thank you.
All right, we'll do it a little out of order. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to be completely frank with you and tell you that the only solution to your problem is to have this man be unelected. And the issue is that the NDP and the Liberals are fighting each other I think right now for second place, rather than what they should be doing, is getting together to fight to destroy this man. Kristen is excellent. She has been a fantastic city councilor. I would love it if the Green and other candidates in that riding would say the best way to beat the Tories is to vote for Kristen. And similarly, Paul is an excellent.
Objectionable statement. That is an objection. We are both running in the same riding here. That's an objectionable statement. You have to stop
Paul-
right now and
Paul-
retract those remarks.
Paul is an excellent. Similarly, Paul is an excellent.
We're almost done and it's finally getting exciting. I totally missed that. I wasn't paying attention. I've kind of been like zoning out.
I think right now for second place, rather than what they should be doing, is getting together to fight to destroy this man. Kristen is excellent. She has been a fantastic city councilor. I would love it if the Green and other candidates in that riding would say the best way to beat the Tories is to vote for Kristen. And similarly, Paul is an excellent.
Objectionable statement. That is an objection. We are both running in the same riding here. That's an objectionable statement. You have to stop right now and retract those remarks.
Paul is an excellent candidate, and I would love it if the NDP in that riding would say the best way to beat the Associate Minister of Transportation that's a Tory is for everyone to vote for a Liberal. And the reality, as long as these three people fight up on stage, you're going to end up with a Ford government. When these three parties start figuring out strategic voting and say the right person in one riding is this person, the right person in that riding is another person, because my solution of proportional representation, regrettably, is not going to be here on June the 2nd. And so the only way that you're going to get the funding you want, because we all know, and Kristen effectively said it, this man is uncomfortable with funding Pride. He's uncomfortable with walking in Pride. He's uncomfortable, and whether it's him personally or whether it's his base, he's catering to that and his base, and so it's not going to happen. So the only way you're going to get the funding you want is if somehow these guys cooperate and stop fighting with each other and not stealing votes from each other and not splitting the votes from each other, and so therefore the Conservatives win. How did the Conservatives win last time? Split votes, and you know it, and I know it, but they won't admit it because they all want to be the leader of the official opposition. They're running for second place, and right now that's what the polls are saying. And who knows? Is it going to be Bill Duke or is it going to be Andrew Horvath? We don't know. But the reality is, if some of them would start saying, you know what, these few ridings actually vote NDP, and in those few ridings actually vote Liberal, that would solve your problem.
I can see, Nikki, you're itching there to respond.
You know, it would be, your words would carry a lot more weight if you knew what the hell you were talking about, okay? In Toronto Centre, we do not have a strategic situation. In others, we do. And we also generally have a pretty collegial way of doing things. And we also understand Pride Toronto, perhaps a little better than somebody not of that community. You talk about proportional representation. Proportional representation begins with who you put on these stages and how you respect the people on these stages. I may disagree strongly with Kristen on many things, but I respect her as a politician. I disagree with Paul on one or two things, not too many, I must admit, but I respect her. And I dislike your remarks because you are talking here about proportional representation, making sure that all voices are heard equally and that everybody gets a chance to speak. Hopefully at a later stage, we're also talking about proportional representation, which I also agree with you upon in the general election. This is way off base with the original question. In 2010, Pride Toronto was nearly defunded in its entirety by the City of Toronto. The community got together to write a plan called the Community Advisory Panel. I should actually say, we wrote a several hundred-page report, consulted with thousands of people in the community to see what Pride meant, why it was so important, and physically identified the economic benefits that you're describing. To say it's somewhere in the back of the Pride offices, it is talking specifically to the issues that you're describing and the lack of funding that's provided from all three levels of government. Now, at the risk of being confrontational, God forbid, you might well look in your history books to find out why we got in that position. You're right in saying that demonizing the opposition And forward bashing is just not the way to go. And that is something our party has not done. We're very good at working across party lines. Things get a little hot under the collar when we're talking about these things, but the Green Party is the only party, I don't know if you saw the provincial debate, is the only party that kept on holding the government to account and did not engage in the sniping that you're describing. So to describe that is just not fair or accurate. Back to the all-important issue. I will tell you that there are good things ahead. Pride Toronto is an economic engine, and Doug Ford understands economics. He may not understand the LGBT community, but he understands money. And whether we're talking about a minority government with folks like myself ensuring that you receive funding, or the four-letter word government, you can be sure that on the provincial side, I think there are good times ahead. On the federal side, you're in good shape because our friends the Liberals have got a very good thing going with Heritage Canada and the tourism industry. I think also you'll see some improvement on the municipal side in the not too distant future, because part of the problem we find ourselves in right now is the enmity between Ford and the LGBT community, which is a legacy that is about to change for one way or another.
I will come back to Brian. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks, Sherry. So I know there are a lot of Pride organizations watching online because this is an important initiative that you have all come together. And I want to thank all of the organizations for coming together. As Jerry said, it's kind of weird and strange when all of these organizations are singing from the same songbook, but it is great when they are. And so we are committed, of course, to increasing the funding to the US LGBTQ sector. We've committed $20 million to the sector, social community services, including Pride festivals. But in addition to that, because we know Pride festivals are not just put on by Pride organizations, they're put on by communities, small businesses. And so there are other pockets of funding that there will be accessible, like tourism, arts and culture funding. We've also committed to supporting small businesses, including 2S LGBTQ businesses, in the form of corporate tax relief for the next 2 years. So all of those things combined, I think will enrich the ability of both Pride organizations, in the case of Pride Toronto, but in some other cities, it's BIAs that put on Pride. In some other cities, it's community centers that put on Pride. And so each of those different types of organizations, each of those different type of collectives will be able to take advantage of the funding. And I can tell you, I mean, I don't have to tell you my bona fides, but for those who don't know, like serving on the board of Pride, I've served on the board of the 519, you're gonna have a champion. If you elect me, at least in Willowdale, whatever the fight may be in other ridings, in Willowdale, you will have a champion who will be on the side of 2S LGBTQ organizations, because I know how important they are, not just to the economic health, but to the health period of this province.
I think it's also important, I'll just point this out, North Bay last year during COVID, during the Pride, sold out 5 hotels. If that tells you anything about economic impact of small communities too. And I think it's really important to really stress that these small prides need.
Okay, but if you know where North Bay is, that makes a lot of sense, because probably people from really small towns, like 4 hours away, went to the North Bay Pride. So, like, you need to stay in a hotel. Whereas, like, Toronto, you don't need to fill up hotels to go to Pride, because, like, there's, like, huge cities with, like, within, like, 2-hour drives of Toronto that you can, like, drive in and out for the day. So, like, I feel like that's kind of a stupid thing to mention, honestly.
Need support, like Pembroke, Timmins, Thunder Bay, all the ones we would never think of. Anyway, Pigeon, we just got to have a wrap up. So I'm sure we could go on. I hope you're apologizing, but go ahead.
I'm going to do something politicians rarely do, and I'm going to backtrack my comments somewhat. I didn't realize that the two of you were in the same riding, and so I want to apologize for my comment. And in reality, I think I know your riding, and probably even if you split the vote, the Conservatives not going to win. And so therefore, my point that I was making wasn't relative to your riding. I apologize. I do think it's relevant for Paul's riding, where a vote for the NDP or the Green might be a vote away from the Liberal that's got probably the second best, the best chance to beat the Conservative. And so therefore, strategic voting is thinking about where the Conservative is in first or second place, and strategic voting could change the result. And I think that's the solution. So I apologize. I did not realize the two of you in the same, and I think you're both great candidates, and I hope people look at your programs and your policies and decide who's the better candidate in the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very gracious of you to say, and of course I accept the generous apology. Thank you for that.
All right, we are going to do a wrap up now. Otherwise, we're going to be here until tomorrow.
It was my fault that I asked them to be at each other's throat. I wanted to see some fire here. I wanted, you know, Central American kind of picante. And then they had a discussion. But we thank you very much for being here. And thank you, Geriatric, for giving me the privilege to witness all of this. And everybody go vote now. Everybody go vote, except the kids. You can still vote. But I mean, everybody go vote. That's all.
Okay, so there's two things we're going to do. The wrap-up speeches, they all have 2 minutes to wrap up. It's the reverse orders, and then we have to send our ancestors home. So go ahead, Paul.
So thank you again for everyone, your patience, everyone watching online, streaming, but also everyone sitting here in the room. It's been a long night, got heated, but I can see why. There's passion here for the issues that our community cares about, and that's ultimately what this debate and discussion has been about. I would be remiss, of course. I have a colleague who's running in the same riding as you two. He also identifies from the queer community. So I want to just say, in Toronto Centre, you have a great opportunity to select a champion from our community. We have a diverse Liberal caucus and a caucus that is committed to advancing these issues. And I personally am taking on myself to be one of those champions because I know how important this is. I've spent my entire career fighting for inclusion, fighting for spaces for our community to succeed, and not just the traditional things that we would do, but all the ways in spaces where we would never be seen or would never feel like we belong. Politics is one of them, and I hope that you will choose this election to send more queer people, and in my case, queer person of color, the first queer Filipino to Queen's Park. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for the organizers. I hope you all have a good night. Miigwech to our elder for being here.
Thank you, Paul. And I worked with Paul as a director in the 519 as well. Great guy, no doubt about it. Firstly, thank you to all of the prides for coming together. And I'm just going to note that for my candidate friends and others out there, that the Greens are committed, and I'm just going to say it out loud. I commit to advancing the three key priorities within the legislature and the government of Ontario: creating a provincial secretariat and an action plan, expanding coverage of and access to gender-affirming healthcare, and creating a $25 million annual funding program for LGBTQ services. I'd also like to reiterate that the Green Party of Ontario might genuinely wanted to be here. There is a video that I'm going to try and get, and I'll post it online, where he sends, felicitations and greetings. This isn't just, tokenism. This isn't just, trotting somebody out once in a while for the funding. This is the real deal. What you see with Mike is what you get, which is a committed, authentic person and an authentic party that believes that proportional representation, to go back to your very excellent points, proportional representations means the proportion of folks like me on this stage. If you really, really want to make a point about inclusion, there has never been a trans MPP. There has never been a trans MP. And if you really want to make Ford sit up and pay attention, I'm going to put in a plug and say, you can guarantee, I've already done it with him and his brother when they were at City Hall. I welcome the opportunity to do it at Queen's Park. Please, if you can, vote your conscience, vote your choice, vote for the government you want. Yes, strategic voting comes in somewhere, but not in our riding. But vote for the government you want. That's the only way you're going to get the government you deserve. I'm Nikki Ward. I'm running for the Green Party of Ontario, and I'm proud to do so in Toronto Centre. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much to the organizers for this evening's lively discussion. It was the one, actually, to be quite honest, I was looking most forward to because it's our community dialogue. I'm very proud to be running for the Ontario NDP, and in particular, our leader, Andrea Horvat. She is such a spirited human rights advocate. She has never, ever wavered from supporting the 2S LGBT community. In fact, our party has led the way in the legislature in Ontario when it comes to LGBT rights. And I just had to pull out this piece of paper because they gave me some things to talk about, and I want to just highlight it because we've actually passed more legislation through private members' bill when it comes to queer equality than any other party in the history of Ontario. And that includes entrenching transgender, gender diverse rights and the Human Rights Code in 2012, banning converging therapy in 2015, equal parenting rights, which I spoke about briefly in 2016, creating opportunities for GSA, Gay Street Alliances, in all the schools, as well as creating the Gender Affirming Healthcare Advocacy Committee Act. All of those things came about because of a strong NDP caucus. Right now, we have 40 seats in Ontario. If you really want to send Mr. Doug Ford packing from the Premier's office, the NDP needs 10 more seats. And we just happen to have 15 extraordinary LGBT advocates running for our party. You elect those 15 queer and trans diverse representatives from the NDP caucus, and we will form a minority government. We will work with everyone across the political spectrum to make sure we can build the Ontario that we deserve, one that's inclusive, one that's equitable, one that's fair, and one that protects queer teens, trans teens, protects queer seniors, transgendered seniors, so they never have to go back into the closet. And that is our commitment to you. Please visit us at ontariondp.ca. And thank you very much to the organizers, to our marvelous hosts. It's been a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Justin Trudeau, 2 election cycles ago, said 1,500 times in the campaign that this would be the last election under first past the post. And then once he got elected, he broke that promise. Dalton McGuinty put forward a referendum on a different electoral system, and then after it was put to a referendum, he campaigned against it. People, I think, really understand that some of the things that I've been talking about really are the solution to our democratic deficit, our voter apathy. Voter turnout is down less than 60%. Some people think voter turnout this election might be the lowest it's ever been. Voter turnout for people under the age of 30 is like 20%. It's 80% for people my age and older, but 20% for young people, because they don't care, because they don't see that their voice is being heard. So we've got to make a change. And you know, the none of the above party, I've got news for you, is not going to get elected government this time. It's just not going to get elected. But if you actually know some people in Mississauga Lakeshore and could ask them to vote for me such that I can actually increase my voice a little bit, that would actually really help to put this back on the agenda. I got to tell you that I've interviewed Diane Sachs, the former environmental commissioner for the province of Ontario, who was fired by Doug Ford and is running for the Green Party. I've interviewed Aberjeet Manny, who's also a deputy leader of the Green Party. There are some incredibly good Green Party candidates. I've interviewed 4 different Liberal candidates, unbelievably good Liberal candidates in some ridings. I've interviewed some NDP candidates, very good NDP candidates. I've actually interviewed some Conservative candidates, very good Conservative candidates in some area. The secret, therefore, the point that I'm trying to say is learn who the people are. And if you believe that you got to get rid of Ford, then do strategically vote when it's appropriate. But most importantly, vote not for the leader, not for the brand of the party. Vote for the person that you actually think will go to Queen's Park and actually represent you. Because that's what representative politics is really what it's all about. So let's think about actually improving our democracy so that my kids aren't just one of the 20%, but are one of the 60% of the people that vote in the next election. Thank you very much for listening to me. And thank you, Mrs. Doubtfire, for inviting me to this stage. I got to tell you, what Mrs. Doubtfire talked about more than anything else was pigeons. Let's love each other. And so I think that's the key. Your point, more love, more respect. Thank you.
First of all, Martha, thank you so much for coming.
Let us take this moment to assess the state of Doug Ford's face. He still has a coat and a tie, and his name is still there. His face is gone. He has become the ghost that they spoke of before we started. More ice. Yo, we need to make like merch. We need to make like shirts that are like lesbian support ice culture. And the only people who will know what your shirt means are like the 30 women who show up in my live chats. None of which live in the same city, except for like 2 of you are from Toronto.
And spending the evening with me. We're doing this again sometime. Thank you, everybody, for stepping forward and filling in for the leaders and stuff. And thank you, Doug. You look like you lost a little bit of weight. It's cooling off the room. There's a few things I'm just going to say. We're not going to tell you who to vote for as prides. We just want you to go out and vote. That's all we're asking you to do. Go out, make your vote, do what you think is right. That's all we're asking. And let me tell you something to all the leaders. You're not going to keep getting away from all these old debates where the voices aren't heard.
Okay, upon closer inspection, I can kind of see a mouth and eyes and a bit of a nose. So he kind of does still have a face, but it's mostly gone. This is like the most exciting part of this entire debate. Like, it's extremely unprofessional and ridiculous. They basically have like an effigy to like shit on because he didn't show up. But like, this is the most exciting part of this debate was the fucking ice sculpture.
As you can
Like watching it slowly melt as they're all sweating to death. Like, does this church not have fans or something? What is going on?
see, you had a lot of pressure to make this one. Justin, Jugmeat, I don't know who the heck's going to be running the Conservatives, but God help them. But just be aware, we're here and we're going to keep doing this and we're going to start calling on you even more. So be aware. Queer Vote with AJ, thank you very much for all the work you've done. Thank you for everybody, all the prides that stepped up. Thank you for MCC stepping up. You are amazing and welcoming. And Sherwin, thank you for your support because you were the first one to answer my call when I called you. So that was really means a lot. And now I get to turn it over so we can send the ancestors home.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who spoke tonight, the questions, the answers, and hopefully moving forward in a good way with each other to create that change that's needed. Because I heard all the same words go across the stage. It's good if we can come together collectively to amplify those voices, no matter which party you're with. So thank you for that. We called in the ancestors when we began to help us do this work in a good way, to come and be here with us to see what we're doing and what we will do to make this a safe space to those that are yet to come and those that are still here. So we give thanks from tonight for being here to help us do this work. Political debates usually get heated, but I must say this was a very small fire tonight. So thank you for that. As we move forward and we continue along with our journey for the next days, the next weeks, the next months, the next years, hopefully for a long time, remember that as we come together, we can only be as strong when we come together. When we think we're so different, we stay apart. When we take the time to sit with each other and to find out what's important and to care for one another, we come closer. So it's going to take all of us to ignite what the people of this territory, the Anishinaabes, believe is the 8th fire prophecies, a time when all nations, like our medicine wheel, the red, the white, the black, and the yellow, we must all come together to create a good path forward so that we treat each other with kindness and respect and love. We're not so different. We've been told we are, but if we take the time to sit with each other, we will find we are much alike. So I urge you to do that as you move forward, to sit with someone you don't know and ask, who are they? And find out more about them. And you will soon find that they are much like you. They are not different. They may have different ways of believing and different thoughts and different ways of doing something, but the purpose is there, to come together, to live in unity, to be kind, and for each person to get their needs met. So please remember that as you move forward. We ask those ancestors to go back to where they sit and wait till we call on them again. And we make that promise to those little ones that are yet to come, that we will work to the best of our abilities to make this space a kind and loving, caring place for those little ones that are yet to be here. Don't forget, we're at the anniversary of finding 215 small babies in those places that they were forgotten about. We're at that anniversary. Remember all those who have lost their lives to violence, those that are currently in the hospitals and institutions that don't have access to the same things that we have. Remember to pray for those in whatever way you pray, because prayer can make big change that we cannot make as humans. No matter who you pray to, there is one stronger than us. There is one greater than us. And we must incorporate our spirituality, our religious understandings to know that sometimes we do all we can and things don't happen. But through prayer, all things are possible. So, Chimigwich, get home safely to your loved ones, to your family, to your friends, to your communities. And until we meet again, we don't say goodbye, we say Bumapee until I see you again. Thank you.
Is the suffering finally over? Oh, holy shit. Thank fuck. Jesus Christ, that was bullshit. Holy fuck. That was the most mind-numbing 2.5 hours of my life, bro. Okay. What the Okay. I think I need to block the word casino from my live chat. But Rachel, I thought the meeting was the highlight of your night after this crap. Well, I don't know if their thing was 2.5 hours because I don't know. Let's reload the page. At like 7:30 I started this stream, which is when oh yeah, it was 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 35 minutes. Oh, because we watched it on like 1.5 speed at the beginning, remember? But yeah, we started it early and we talked about the website a bit, and then we watched it quickly, like on double speed or 1.5 speed because it was so fucking boring. There's like some kind of cat drama going on in the alley, and Momo is like looking at down the balcony, like at the cat drama. It's a different one, I think. Like they all have very similar names. This one is casinotop1.com. I don't know, man. No, the only thing we skipped was the comedians like 5 minutes of bullshit. That's the only thing we skipped. We watched everything else. We probably watched more of this stream than anybody else in Canada, other than like the handful of people who showed up in person. The only person from the audience who asked a question with the mic was that elder, Blue Rivers, right? Which was weird. What was the point of this presentation you showed? Basically to point out the absurdity of everything. Like, I'm a lesbian and I'm voting in this election, and nothing they talked about has like literally any impact on me in any way. Like it's all, and they all had the same fucking shit to say. Like they started off being like, we're gonna disagree and like that's okay, and they all said the same shit over and over again. Watching paint dry would have been more entertaining, agreed. Tossstone says this was as difficult as the Reddit shite earlier. Agreed. Welcome. Welcome to Canada. Yeah. The entire thing was just a circle jerk. That's why they were so boring, yeah. I wish they'd argued more, says Rachel. I agree. Like, they kind of yelled at each other at the end. Like, ugh. Oh my god, and the Tim. He kept yelling at Christine Wong Tam and, like, interrupting her. Like, she was the only woman there, and he was so fucking aggressive to her. I don't know. I have a couple of, like, general thoughts. So what was the guy? The no party guy, what's his name? The none of the above party, okay? Oh, hey, Miguel. You just missed 2.5 hours of the most excruciating bullshit you've ever watched. How many views is this video gonna get? This video, people are gonna click on it and watch it for like 10 seconds and be like, you know what, never mind. This video is not gonna get any views. But okay. The none of the above party. Basically, he wants election reform. That's basically his thing. That's his whole thing, right? As far as I understand it. But then he was talking about strategic voting. Isn't that like he talked about like representation by like proportional representation, and then he was like, you guys need to do strategic voting. Like, aren't those two things like incompatible? Yeah, that's true. They didn't yell at each other. It was just the Tim yelling at everyone. Yeah, that's accurate. A white blanket on the ice sculpture was a highlight. Yeah, actually, let's go back and look at that. Here. Let us watch ensemble. Literally at the beginning, we were all like, what is that? I was like, maybe it's a cross. Like, maybe they covered it because it's like a not a religious event, but it's in a church. We were like, wow, that's a weird looking thing over here. This big white thing. What is that?
Okay. Oh, you're way back there. I see you. How are you? Good. My name is Geriatric. It used to be Anita Woody, but they don't let me use that name anymore. You get it later when you think about it on your...
What did he say? I need a Woody?
It used to be Anita Woody, but they don't let me use that name anymore. You get it later.
Dude, there's a fucking child sitting in front of him. Shut the fuck up, bro.
Later, when you think about it on your drive home. Listen, my name is Geriatric. Like I said, I am from the north. We have electricity. We have indoor plumbing. It's really amazing. The world does not stop at the berry. Right, Sean? Right.
Okay, that joke was like somewhat entertaining. Like, not funny, somewhat interesting, but the delivery was shit. And also, Torontonians don't think that Ontario stops at Barrie. They think it stops at, like, St. Clair. Anyway, whatever.
Anyway, we invited all the parties to participate in this debate. We worked with the leaders. As you know, a couple of them caught COVID, sadly, and weren't sure what they were going to be able to do or whether they're going to be here. So they decided that the best thing to do was send representatives that speak on their behalf. So as you can see, we have these wonderful folks here, all set. But I felt a little bad about the Conservatives. Yeah, I did. I felt a little bad. I think they needed a little representation here at the debate. So I went out of my way today. I went to the Arctic. So I thought, let's give Doug a little bit of...
Dude, the Filipino guy is, like, really smiling. Look at the Tim, too. Everyone except Christine Wong Tam. Like, okay, Christine Wong Tam is, like, very, very canned. Like, it's all very, like, scripted or whatever. But at least she's, like, a fucking professional. You know.
I went to the Arctic.
Oh, no, this is a drag queen, not an AGP. It's a gay guy. I think that he's just, like, a gay guy. He's not an AG... Well, I mean, you know.
So I thought, let's give Doug a little bit of representation here today. All right. There you go. So Doug is actually here.
Dude, they made, like, the title card for him. They made the title thing for him.
He is technically at at a rally they decided to do 2 days ago, so he could have come, but he doesn't answer the phone for us. Anyway, so I have the pleasure of joining.
Okay, so that's enough of that bullshit. I'm trying to think my other general thoughts. I don't know, dude. Like when they brought up the prisons issue, I feel like they could have had like some really Aqua, you just got here. It's good timing. It was horrible. I feel like with the prison stuff, they could have had like some really interesting like stuff to say. They mentioned some of them mentioned like indigenous stuff like in their opening speeches, and after that they never mentioned anything to do with indigenous stuff. Like literally when the mental health question was brought up, when the healthcare questions were brought up, I was like, oh, now they're gonna mention like the indigenous communities. Nope. Oh, they did Christine Wong Tam mentioned that indigenous women are overrepresented in prison. Like why is that and what can be done about it was not mentioned. Oh yeah. So we were all joking. We were all joking like, "Oh, that's Mrs. Doubtfire." Like in the live chat, and then the dude, this guy, the none of the above party guy. Oh, you can't see my mouse. The none of the above party guy, he at the end was like, "Thanks for being here, Mrs. Doubtfire." You're right, Rachel. That's very presumptive of me to think that politicians want to do anything. I got this Gator Light stuff today. It looks like, do you guys know that Mexican drink Electrolyte or whatever electrolyte? It looks like that. It's even the same flavor, strawberry kiwi. And I looked at the ingredients and it's got like actual electrolyte shit in it, like way more than real Gatorade, which is like just sugar. It tastes like shit, man. It tastes like shit. It's like chalky tasting. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. Christine Wong Tam is aiming for premier. But dude, she's not going to become premier unless the NDP wins. So is she going to fucking jump parties? Like, how is that supposed to happen? When's the last time the NDPs were in power in Ontario? Okay, so Doug Ford was voted in 2019. Before that was Kathleen Wynne, the lesbian sellout that Dragon was mentioning. What's salt and glucose? The original Gatorade? This one has like actual electrolytes in it. It has, well, it has magnesium and calcium, but it's mostly sodium, potassium, and salt, chloride. I mean, whatever. All right. Oh, buy 1000 sister. I like your. Is that a pumpkin? That's very cool. I like your profile picture. Yeah, Dragon, you're right. Here it says Bob Ray was elected in 1990. He was the last NDP to get elected. Like literally, it's mostly conservative, sometimes liberals in Canada. In Ontario. Holy shit! In 1919, the Greens had 45 seats. That's interesting. This is the. This is the party. So right now, it's Doug Ford. Before him was Kathleen Wynne and Dalton McGuinty. I feel like since we've flipped conservative that we're going to stay conservative now. But all hail ice sculpture. Like look at this from 1943 to 1985, there was a solid conservative government provincially. Anyway. Kelly says, I don't know when I'll be able to vote again either. And I always voted since I turned 18 into my 40s. Yeah. I've never voted for anyone who won, except for John Tory, which is my very first time voting, was for the mayor of Toronto. And like, ugh, he went out and was like, Megan Murphy is a TERF. Like, so embarrassing. Like, I'm embarrassed that I voted for him. Like, that's not the only reason, but that's like that's really the one that comes to mind, like the number one embarrassment of voting for him. But Aqua's saying this too. So are we all spoiling our ballots? Bob Ray, he effed over his constituency. Ray days, he really blew it. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to vote. It's in like a week. Oh, dude, this chart is much cooler than that. Look at, so this is like the proportion of the vote. So this is only up to 2014. There has been a general upswing in NDPs. Well, actually, this is 1990. It's like, it's basically always these two parties. Like, when the guy at the end, the none of the above guy at the end, when he was saying that they should be strategic just to get the conservatives out, like, that's like a valid, like, I don't know if if he should have been saying it or whatever, but I do think that that's like a good way of looking at the Ontario provincial politics. Oh no, Aqua. Aqua says I voted for Rachel Soji, not the Never Again. Soji is the sexual orientation and gender identity like curriculum that they put in the schools. Kelly says probably spoiling if I can be bothered to go. Honestly, I think it would be cool if we had like a turf party next federal election. Literally, not because we're all gonna love the women who run, not because we expect them to win, but because I'd rather vote for a woman who has a turf platform than spoil my ballot. Like, how many women are in this position if I'm going to spoil my ballot because there's nobody I want to vote for, or I'm going to be throwing away my vote just voting for anyone who's in opposition, right? Like, I'm sure there is some tiny party, like not the Communist Party, but like there must be some tiny Canadian party that is against like pediatric transition. That's not the PPC. Yeah. Like, if we had just like a women's party of Canada and it was all TERFs, if we just had like a couple of women running, it would at least give some women someone to vote for that they didn't like ethically completely disagree with. Like, you know how there's like always turf drama, right? Of like, oh, like she said this thing, she's a lesbophobe, blah blah blah. But in like the grand scheme of things, Momo, why? Why? Don't look excited about it. Be guilty. She just knocked over my garbage can so she can play with the garbage. You're gonna sticker your ballot, Ariel? Yeah. I mean, do any of you know if you spoil your ballot, does somebody read it? Like, is it written down somewhere? Like, is it worth writing real stuff on it? Other than like for your own vindication? She knocks over the garbage just so she can leave the bedroom. Dude, you're so spoiled. There's just a count for who spoiled their ballots. They track the comment. Okay. Wait, a bird killed me. Where do you live? Are you a Canadian? Right, that makes sense. I think someone checks it, yeah, because the machine can't read it, so they pull it out and try to figure out what you wanted. But did they like write that down anywhere, or it's just like those people who see it? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Oh, yeah, you're Swedish. Okay, yeah. You have an election in Sweden this year. Is there no parties that have slightly turfy things to say? Anything turfy to say? Kelly says she's gonna write Team Turf maybe on her ballot. Kelly, did we used to talk on Instagram? Are you that person? Or are you a different person? Like, since my Instagram got banned, I've lost contact with everyone. You kind of remind me of her. Um, uh, I've worked on a paper election and comments are not documented. Well, that's unfortunate. Not one, they're all woke. Yeah, like Canada. Even the, yeah. Aqua says, did you guys see that women in Norway might get 3 years in prison for turfing? Yes. Oh, well, nice to meet you, Kelly. Yeah, I did see that. It's super, super disturbing. So you might have noticed that my stickering video was taken down, the one about the women in Ottawa who've been stickering. So I've been going out where I live and stickering. And like honestly, honestly, I'm pretty sure if I got arrested for hate speech that there's like some constitutional lawyers who would support me because the stickers I put up, like they don't even mention the word trans on them. Yeah, I know. Matt Adams says definitely not the video I thought would be reported. Yeah, I thought the one that I did about Limpida would be reported by all of the like ROGD parents or like whatever, whoever it is that's simping for like the misogynist detrans men. I did meet you IRL once briefly though. We were when you were checking tickets at the Toronto Megan Murphy talk. Yo, you also in Toronto? Okay, there's like 4 of you from Toronto in the live chat. I don't know when I'm going to be in Toronto. Honestly, probably July. But I should like organize and vet you guys. Yeah. That's so cool, Kelly. Alko says, I also saw the guy at the Yaniv trial was told by the judge to call him Miss Yaniv. Perjury. Which is like honestly to be expected. Oh, you're in Brantford? Dude, that's better than living in Toronto. Toronto is like bullshit. Oh. Yeah. But like, okay, if we already know that rapists in Canada, it's like enforced that you have to if we get I don't know what I was saying. Yeah. I also no longer live in Toronto. Like, I'm not saying where I live. I'm still in Ontario, obviously, but every time I go there, like the traffic makes me homicidal. Like to get from like one of my family members' houses to like the house of my best friend. And if I drive in like the middle of the night, because we're both close to the highway, it takes like 15 minutes from one to the other. And if I go like at any time during the day, even if it's like not rush hour, even if it's like noon or something, anytime during the day will take me at least 45 minutes minimum, sometimes up to an hour and a half. Oh, dude. Benji, how is the move preparation? You know, Aqua hates moving walls. Yeah, dude, can you see my bedroom? I mean, you can't really see my bedroom. The state of my bedroom is not great. I literally haven't even done my laundry and I'm moving in like 5 days. I don't really know what I'm doing with my life. Like I need to get on top of that. Honestly, part of it is that like my work has been closed all week and I planned on getting boxes from my work. But like that's kind of an excuse. I can still like clean stuff and give away stuff and like sell stuff and whatever I'm doing before I move. Um Warden threw a party at the Turffield jail. Turf band was there and they began to wail. Dude, you know I used to be obsessed with Elvis Presley. I've literally been to Graceland. I went through like a period as a teenager where I was obsessed with Elvis. I have like the movie Jailhouse Rock. I have the Jailhouse Rock movie. Maybe my sister has it. I don't know where it is, but like I fucking bought it. Don't get frozen, Benji. Why would I be frozen? What do you mean? I'm fine. I have to go to Toronto weekly right now and it's a nightmare, dude. I sympathize. Even going once every couple months is like too much. Are they making an Elvis movie? Oh, like moving stunned. Oh no, it's already happened. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have like an insane amount of stuff. Like I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be throwing out or donating like a third of the stuff I own because it's like insane. Like I literally wear like the same 10 t-shirts every day. Like I have like an entire drawer full of socks and I wear like the same like 15 pairs of socks. Like I need to get rid of a lot of stuff. Yeah, the new place we're moving, we have like a very long lease. I foresee us staying there for like a long time. Like maybe until we can afford to buy a place. Like my family, you know. I live in I live in such a high density troon zone. Any place sounds better. um I've never regretted owning so many books until I had to move. No, like very valid. I I think I'm gonna donate some of my books. Cause like I have a fair amount of comic books. I haven't even read like half of them. Um all of my like young adult stuff. I have like I have like a bunch of young adult stuff. And then I have like a very small like less than 20 like high fantasy books that are not young adults. Here. Are you ready for a tour of my bookshelf? Okay, Momo, here, go. Wait. How are you gonna live your life when we don't have a balcony anymore, Momo? Alright. Okay, can I pick up my webcam? Yep. Alright. This is my bookshelf. The whole back part, like the whole back wall of stuff is all young adult. Actually, this is not young adult. These 6 books. Isn't there 7 in that series? Oh yeah, here's the 7th one. But these are all young adult. I mean, 1984 obviously is not. All of this, Tamora Pierce. Over here, you can't really. This cable is kind of short. Young adult. This stuff in the front, it's just like this is high fantasy, this is urban fantasy. These are like feminist, like nonfiction. Actually, this is Virginia Woolf. This is fiction. This is fiction. This is fiction. Okay, this is mostly feminist nonfiction. Um, these are books that Rachel sent me. But, yeah, that I haven't read yet. These are books that my lesbian friend lent me. That's why they're not like on the bookshelf properly. And then these are all my comic books. I probably read like 6 of these. I've never read them again. Like, I don't have any attached. Well, the Sandman I like. Probably get rid of all of them except Sandman. Yeah. But also, I had this idea that I was going to be selling stuff before I moved. And like, I'm moving in like a week. Like, when am I selling this stuff? I think I'm going to end up donating a lot of it. And this is not including my music books, obviously. I have a whole bookshelf of music books, like sheet music. And, well, I have like some pedagogy, theory, autobiographies and stuff in my music bookshelf. But it's mostly like sheet music. Who's Elliot Lake? Is that one of the authors I showed you? These 2 books. I think they're both part of series, and apparently they have some crossover characters, and they're both female-focused high fantasy written by female authors. I haven't read them yet. This one has a Toronto Transit transfer. When is it from? What year is this? It doesn't say the year. It's just for the King streetcar. Okay. All right. Dude, we've all been there. I almost bought us a turf apartment building in Moose Jaw, Alberta from 1912, but I didn't have the $1.25 million. Yeah, dude, me also. Same. Oh, yeah, with books, I think you have to have small boxes, like milk crates at the absolute largest for moving books. Yeah, I know, the Buy Nothing. I'm gonna probably post a lot of stuff in like a Buy Nothing Facebook group. Yeah, like all of my stuff in the top shelf, like all of that, I'm never fucking getting rid of it. It all has sentimental value to me. And like, especially the YAs, like I could like tell you which character development stuff happens in each book of the series. Like I'm so obsessed with those characters. Like when I'm stressed out, I'll like read those books. Dyke for Life. I want that book. I'm reading For Lesbians Only right now on my lunch breaks. It's an anthology. I love it so far. Dude, I want that book. Like, I know where to get pirated copies of it, but I don't know where to get a paper copy. Honestly, I think what I'm going to do, some of you, oh, no. I know where to get a paper copy. 2 of you, like, helped me research where to buy the books. That was very helpful. However, the average cost of the books was like $30 to $70 because they're like out of print. So I think what I'm going to do, Aqua, you were in my Twitter space? Oh, because you don't have a smartphone, right? That sucks, bro. Yeah, you have to be on a smartphone to use Twitter Spaces. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I think what I might do is that stuff that's out of print, I might like print off a paper copy of like a digital version because I want to have a paper copy of it. That way, I'll have a paper copy of it. I mean, it'll be like not like a real book, but then I at least definitely have like a physical copy of it. I have a big no avatar. Okay. I also need to just start going to like like used bookstores, like way more, and like just like looking for like second wave stuff. But I'm like, how do you do that? Like, can you just like know? Like, I don't know, have like an encyclopedic knowledge of like all second wave books. I don't know. I mean, I'll start trying it out, I think, after I move. But okay, we should wrap this up. Yeah, because they're out of print. There's this one book that I really want. It's about the Lesbian Organization of Toronto, Loot. And you can only buy it from University of Toronto Press, and I think it's like $100. Like, some of these books are so expensive, like lesbian history stuff. But Eden Built by Elves, Gay Chapman just got a copy, and she's going to mail it to me when she's done reading it. So I'm going to read it to you guys on the channel. Oh my god, these fucking casino things. I need to ban the word casino from my live chat. Mige also wants for lesbians only. Okay, Mige, I will message you a link to a place where you can get a digital pirated copy. Because I think I did find it on one pirate site. Okay, Momo. What? Ariel, what are you talking about? The Toronto Public Library has a book-making tech lab? What? I've never heard of this. Tell us more, Ariel. They would make it in a book format. Oh my god. That is very cool. That is very cool. No, don't fight me. Just say goodbye to the ladies. Face the camera, please. Momo, why you have to be so petulant and everything? Okay, fine. No, she doesn't like being touched that much. Don't fight us, Momo. She doesn't really like being touched. She likes to do her own thing, and like if you scratch her, that's kind of okay for a limited amount of time. Otherwise, she likes to just do her own thing. Yeah. This is why her chair is here, so that she's in the video. Let's make lesbians for ice sculpture things, says Matt Adam. Agreed. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm too good at my job. I don't need this meeting. Oh, at the Toronto Reference Library. That makes sense, kind of. My cat smells like a Chinese grocery. What does Momo smell like? Momo, come here. She kind of smells like dust. She doesn't really have a smell. It's okay. Momo was like, WTF, yeah. When I first got her, we used to talk to each other. Momo! No, she's like in sleepy mode. When she used to like, she used to make noises like that, so I started imitating her, and then she would like have conversations back and forth when I lived by myself in my first apartment. But I think that basically she doesn't feel anxious about things anymore, so she doesn't talk as much. I mean, that's my like interpretation of things, because now she chills out next to me way more, and she purrs when I scratch her like all the time. So I think she's just like chilled out a lot. We are to Momo as that pit of fish were to Kevin in SpongeBob. She trained your ass. She don't need to talk to you anymore. Lol. The Ricky Gervais thing? Okay. Here's my thoughts on that. Are you ready for me to, like, you know, have a hot take? I mean, this is my YouTube channel. Everything is like a fucking hot take. Basically, so Dave Chappelle has made a lot of like lesbophobic jokes. And it's like, it's one thing to joke about a minority, right? Like, or to joke about like, there's a way to joke about things that you're not really supposed to joke about that are like not punching down at those people, right? I've seen a lot like I've seen that kind of stuff and I like it. Dave Chappelle, I don't think that he does that. I think when he jokes about women, he's just being misogynistic. He's not joking like, oh, look what happens to the women, that sucks. He's kind of like, oh yeah, those shitty women, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Like, that's his kind of joke. And I don't like that. So just because Dave Chappelle one time made a joke about trans things, and like even the joke was like he used like their own language and it was like incomprehensible. Like honestly, it was like stupid. I like he tried. He like stepped on some toes, but I was like, what's the big deal? Like he didn't really like, you know? So everybody was losing their shit over Dave Chappelle, and I was like, he's a misogynistic, lesbophobic asshole. But because he said one thing that you like half agree with one time, even though he stumbled over the right language to use and whatever, like not right as in what I think is right, but like he wasn't explaining what he was trying to say very well. Um anyway. So everybody lost their shit over Dave Chappelle. Didn't Russell Brand also say something one time? I'm pretty sure Russell Brand said something kind of GC-ish one time. Everybody lost their shit. I think he just tweeted it. I can't remember. Anyway, so I know people like Ricky Gervais. Obviously, like The Office and Afterlife and stuff, they're like good shows. Like he is like good at comedy. But did I just break this thing? But I also think that he's misogynistic. As a lesbian separatist, my bar for what is misogynistic is extremely fucking high or low, whatever. Like, not. There's almost no men in the world that pass my bar for not being misogynist. But anyway, he's not like Eddie Izzard or like, so he's not like over the top, like really, really misogynistic, but he's still too misogynistic for me. So my take is that just because one guy said one thing I agree with one time doesn't mean I'm about to go simping for him. And it's kind of like, I'm not trying to like diss you, Aqua. Like we can talk about it, whatever. If you like him, then you should like him, like whatever. But to me, just like watching on Twitter, how it's all gone down, it's like kind of crazy to me. Like this one guy said one thing you agreed with one time, and everybody like lost their fucking minds, being like he's the best comedian of all time. He is like God. We fucking love him. And I'm like, because he said one thing you agree with, the bar should be higher, you know? Like Miguel says, I think that's a mistake a lot of guys make, giving men too much credit for the most tiny things. Yeah, exactly, dude. I totally agree. Yeah. Is everybody just gonna be putting like the ice cube emoji all the time in my thing? Yeah. Let me look, gay. There might be. I know that there's at least one project online of women. I don't know though, because Eden Built by Elves is still in print, right? So maybe they're not prioritizing stuff that's still in print. I don't know. We'll figure it out, gay. I also have scanning capabilities. Like I have a scanner and a computer. It's been a while. I used to scan sheet music at university because it's so expensive to buy like a quartet or like a symphony or something to buy all the parts. It's like really, really expensive, like hundreds of dollars. So I used to at university just like scan everything into like Google Drives. So I was like, someday when I want this music, I will have it. And it's like, have I ever used it? No. But I have a bunch of music. Yes, there is a Discord for this. So we've changed tactics. I mean, obviously it's .com, not .con. Okay, whatever. If you want to join the Discord, email Rachel. She will vet you and add you. So the way that it works is you have to do a video chat. From the video chat, we will decide, is this a crazy person who is masquerading? Or is this like a kind of probably okay lady who's not insane. And then we will add you to the Discord. The general plan with the Discord, I think it's gonna probably start in July, honestly, just because like my life is so hectic right now. Is to do like a kind of weekly voice chat in the Discord. And also because you guys, you only place you talk to each other is in the live chat. So when I'm not streaming, you don't talk to each other. So like if you've like made friends with the women in the live chat, if you're in the Discord, then you guys can talk with each other. Your copy is signed by the author, gay? Holy shit. There. Rachel is on top of things. She's doing. Rachel says, I'll be vetting this weekend. If you don't have time for a video chat this weekend, we can schedule it for another time. Yeah. Ooh, if you want a game, we can talk on Discord. That's like a kind of good idea. We should do that. Yeah. Okay. This has been chill, but I've streamed for like 5 hours today. So that's enough of that. I'm pretty sure Rachel and I are doing a sister chat this Saturday. It's scheduled. We haven't decided what we're talking about. But we'll see. Yeah. No stream tomorrow for sure. I have like a lot of stuff to do tomorrow. And then probably after the sister chat, there will be no streams for like multiple days because I need to get my shit together to move. Like I think when is the first? Like Tuesday or something? Like I need to get my shit together to move. Yeah, so. Okay. All right. Take care, guys. I will see you on Saturday. Okay. Bye.